Tell us about your chair, Ziggy.
The new chair?
Yeah.
I scored a Bethesda sponsorship and they sent me a new chair.
I was just saying,
Very
Ziggy,
bright.
that if the chair's going to be on Baeclast, I feel like the Baeclast crew should be receiving some of the sponsorship. You know, we might need to send a message to Bethesda. You know?
Unless it's a Fallout 76 chair.
Yeah, in which case we're alright.
We do not want to associate.
It's a generic Fallout chair.
In which case, send a generic email to Bethesda. But okay, I'm just gonna go. Hey guys, Tarke here, and today we are joined by the lovely Baeclast crew, as Chris always likes to say. Let's start off with Raiz. What have you been up to? What builds are you playing at the moment?
I think last week I was playing the Fireburst on the last Baeclast. I've been playing that since. I'm not sure if I mentioned it or not. But I've been playing that for a while. I haven't died yet. It's been pretty cool. It's with Elementalist using golems. It's not like Dan's build. I've got an arcane cloak, okay, and it's non archmage and stuff and things because you can't trigger that with Fireburst. But it's really nice. It's been working out great. Fireburst is really OP, and it's definitely getting nerfed next league.
What's so OP about it?
Yeah, it's like it's a super low effort entry point, and it's really powerful because all you really need are like the elder unique gloves, which I don't even have, and I've done like pretty much everything in the game. And yeah, you don't need to link your staff or bow or whatever you want to use your Fireburst in. There's no like super special items for it. I happen to drop a Chain of the Primordial, the Golem one, so I'm using that with my Elementalist, trying to farm up the Primordial cards. Oh my god, dude. Let me tell you. I think I would have been on like 3 sets already if I just didn't try and gamble on the Harvest. I didn't get a single return because I just keep getting like them removed. I think I'm paying the price for all the other leagues where it felt like always I was getting extra cards, so it always felt great. But yeah, this league, it just wasn't working out. And right now I'm playing I've been looking for a Raider build for a long time. And Raiders generally don't really seem to work out that well in SSFHC since they're really powerful, but you need to spend effort. And I don't know, most people just don't get there. It's kind of like old melee in that way, where to deal damage, you gotta like do anything, and just why do that when you can just do something else? I don't know. You stop making faces. Raiders are great. It's just that's why I wanted to play one. He's been playing his character for like 2 weeks, okay? He's making a face.
100.
Yeah, exactly. That's a lot of effort. What the hell?
But it was good from the start. I didn't even need to put it. Was like, yo, this is actually nice. I'm just pogging.
Yeah, because Lightning Strike has been the sleeper OP for like a long time now. I don't know. People.
I wouldn't call it sleeper OP. It's been like this league. It became really good.
Do you think
they didn't change anything? Just the Volt
They did. They gave us like Ashling for like Pen and Trinity and better essences and better vault skill, and I don't know. It's like a lot of power.
So what you're saying is the new Unveil system is
better.
more powerful than Harvest?
No.
Okay, I guess that's a conversation for later. Anyway, I've been playing a Raider, and I've been looking for a character for the Gauntlet, and I made some like Trapper guy with cooldowns, and then I thought it was a really cool idea. Like, theory crafted it in the middle of the night. I'm finally done with theory crafting. I'm like, I wonder how the gameplay looks like. Has anybody played this before? Just using like Lightning Spire Trap and like all the cooldown-based traps, basically. And then I see, unfortunately, that 4 hours ago, Wolfia has released a video. I'm like, oh, Wolfia really knows his shit, but he tends to play kind of wonky builds. And the video almost immediately opens up with how the build's bad. So I start crying, but I play the build anyway. Yeah, it takes a lot of effort. It's kind of cool, but yeah. But now, I guess to summarize, I am playing Orb of Storms Raider, and it's with Archmage, and it's super powerful. I don't know. I face tank ultimatums, and it just feels amazing. Orb of Storms, a lot of people, after the nerfs, they pretty much like nuked the build entirely. Apparently, you had a bug as well. A lot of, like, I haven't really seen a whole lot of people playing Orb of Storms after the nerfs, and holy moly is it good, because you don't have a proper 6-link really, so your best link is Chain, which already benefits your AoE, like you have to use it pretty much. but then also it's large mana cost on Archmage, and also the best part about it, chains with Hydra Sphere, so it doubles your single target. It is real nice because I've been wanting to play a Hydra Sphere build for like a long time, so can wholeheartedly recommend. But I'm only now like kind of getting into the 90s with it, so it's still pretty early on.
That's good though. Let's go to the next Raider player, Nugi.
Right. I'm playing Lightning Strike. It's great. It's actually so I've had so many people ask, can you play this like on a budget? And we've come to the conclusion then yes you can, because it scales, you know, as we were talking about last time, it scales with like your early auras. The skill itself has flat damage, and it's so easy to just essence some things and you're kind of just going. I will say there's like a mid tier where you need to get to really get the pop, you need to get the eye level 80 hunter gloves and to get the strike, so you don't have to use your ancestral call. And then you need to farm Haywalk for a while until you hit that good claw with an essence. But you have like 3 different essences that are all good, like all the anger, wrath, and hatred.
Yeah,
so that's really nice.
Yeah, because you're a Trinity build, doesn't matter which one you go for as long as
Yeah,
you
so
get it, right?
any of them. You just need high elemental damage of any sort. And because Lightning Strike is inherently lightning, it's almost impossible to fuck up Trinity in terms of not being able to trigger it, because lightning rolls very low, very high. So it's almost impossible. So yeah, been crafting a lot. Oh, I've actually had a lot of fun with crafting. That doesn't mean that I'm entirely happy with Harvest, because Harvest still upsets me every time I enter. But there are some cool meta crafting techniques that utilize at least the reforges from Harvest, which are very, very nice, with like keep prefix and then reforge whatever it is you want. Like I was doing my chest, there's a suffix open still, and I did keep suffix, reforge chaos to force chaos roll, did the same thing with shield, stuff like that. It's really cool. And then I did the keep suffix again, and then keep then reroll cold, and then you force the other roll. So basically it's turned into, instead of this add cold, augment cold from Harvest, we're now doing meta crafting reforge with, and so you can get the start rolling, but you can't really have 2 mods on there already and then force the third. It's like you have to start and then you can kind of craft on there and Ashling on Veil and stuff like that. That's kind of cool. And I think the last big event was, it took me 10 4-ways to get a lethal pride. And I was doing it on cooldown. 75 kills of the dumb Hiri lady.
That's pretty harsh.
But I got it, and it's insane. So
Nice.
that was my journey. That's me.
And what about you, Ziggy? What are you playing at the moment?
I've been playing low life, blood magic, pillar of the cage god, strength stacking, vile ground slam champion. I can throw some more keywords in there, I suppose, but it's good. So actually using the blood magic keystone and petrified blood, and I actually don't feel like a complete idiot for doing it. I love the new edition of petrified blood because it really enables some stuff that I could only dream about in old school PoE back in the day. But yeah, the new, like the 50% reservation for life, the whole strength stacking thing, combining with blood magic, with the new support gem that I always forget the name of, that gives you more physical damage based on your maximum life.
Bloodthirst?
I think that's the one, yeah. It just, a lot of it just like comes together and makes sense. You could still technically do it as mana based instead of blood magic, but it actually makes more sense to go blood magic in this setup, which is the first time that's ever happened in a very long time. So I've really been enjoying that. But the new exerted vile ground slam is very fun. It's a bit high effort still, and a lot of people who have rolled something similar have been like, I stopped eventually due to Warcry spam, which is, I think, is pretty common. But when you do pull off the fully exerted Vile Ground Slam that hits the entire screen and like guarantees stuns any bosses and stuff like that, as well as like chunking them and one-shotting a lot of lower tier bosses and stuff like that, it's very satisfying. But yeah, it's kind of like a janky meme build that actually works and is very solid. Like, we're not like talking like a couple million DPS regular Ground Slam and then like upwards of like 8 million DPS Vile Ground Slam. You could probably push it to like maybe double that with very good gear, because you can do some like ridiculous strength stacking, like triple strength affixes with the Ashling unveils. No, it's fun, solid, satisfying build, kind of gimmicky. Love it.
How do you
Very happy.
how do you feel about the Warcry stuff? Because that's something, I think that's the #1 complaint I'll see. Is someone be like, "Hey, Tarke, I'm playing this really sick Warcry build," and then I'll be like, "Oh, how's it going?" Like, yeah, no, I quit. It's too many buttons.
It's one of those things where once you're doing like the full Warcry rotation and you feel the power of it, it's hard to like give that up. But that just kind of makes you want to like quit the build and do something that's not like that next time at some point. Because you can take almost any build like that and just automate your Warcry by putting on left click and getting the keystone for insta Warcry and just using one instead. But it is strictly like not as powerful. But you can spend the investment you spend on Warcry stuff elsewhere. So you can kind of do those same builds without the high effort. It's just hard to do that after you've actually done the high effort version and felt that like extra power level, because it is very noticeable. Like, they did a good job with Warcries in a lot of ways in that they feel very impactful, that the like gameplay is much more interactive. But in a game where we are pressing a lot of buttons very rapidly on cooldown, like flask mashing constantly and stuff like that, also doing Warcries every few seconds is kind of adding a lot of fatigue to a game that's already pretty fatiguing at the moment. And the other thing is that this is an issue I have with these like ideas of these like one bonk builds and stuff like that. At a certain point, it always makes sense to start getting more attack speed, and you just naturally do. And that's when early on, when you're like slow, the Warcries feel pretty good. And that whole concept of like making slower hitting builds stronger with Warcries is something I was like really excited with the whole Warcry additions and changes. But every time I've done something with it, the builds get faster and faster to a certain point where the Warcries just start to feel like they're never up unless you're really spamming them constantly. So it's kind of annoying. It's like, every 1 to 2 seconds at a certain point. And I mean, I'm a permanent low life, permanent adrenaline champion. So even without any attack speed scaling, I'm still very fast. So it's still a lot of Warcry spam unless you're only really worrying about for Vile Ground Slams. But regular Ground Slam feels pretty awful if you're not exerting it. I don't know. It's an awkward space that the game doesn't like fully support. I say that knowing entirely that like a lot of really good builds still use it, and people who are patient enough and don't mind it, it's fine. And like Earth Shatter is really solid. But for a lot of other builds, it's just, there's just a weird feeling there.
How do you feel about Octavian, since you obviously played Vile Ground Slam this league?
I can sympathize with the Warcry frustrations. I have some other builds that I'm planning later this league that like make sense as slams, and I'm trying to think of some other setup that could work for what I want to do, because I don't want to play slams anymore. I've played like 4 of them and I've just used too many Warcries at this point. But as far as specifically Ground Slam, Vile Ground Slam, like, I don't know. I enjoyed it as a league starter, and it was really fun to do ultimatums with, but what Ziggy mentioned towards the end of when he was talking about it, where regular Ground Slam feels like a wet noodle when it's not exerted, it has the same feeling that like, it's not as bad, but it had a similar feeling to how Static Strike felt to me when I played it, where occasionally with Static Strike, like you're running along and you got this great build going and you're killing everything, and then you have to stop and basic attack something, and then you can get to go and play your build again. And it feels similarly with Ground Slam versus Vile Ground Slam, where it's like, you get the Vile Ground Slams and you've got a great build going, and then occasionally you have to regular Ground Slam something and it feels awful again. So I would rather maybe Vile Ground Slam wasn't as insane and some of that power budget got put into regular Ground Slam. Or you can just go the route of doing perma Vile Ground Slam builds, and then it's fucking fantastic. But that's a little more niche, and also, given the recent rise in the market and softcore trade, very expensive, I think.
What are you playing at the moment though, Octavian?
I'm still finishing out the 100 on the cremation build that I was playing in the last episode. I am almost done. I am like halfway through 99 or something. but I've been gathering gear for a new build that I'm pretty excited about, where I'm going to pretend to be on low life. I'm going to use the belts from the temple that curses you with Vuln. What is it called? Coward's Legacy.
Yeah.
And while you're cursed with Vuln, you are treated as if you're on low life. And then I'm going to use Aziri's Reflection to ignore that. And I'm going to use a Paradoxica and use Bloodthirst support to power Paradoxica with a bunch of Flat Fizz. And I've also shoved a Counts Heart into the build for tons of life. So I've needed to craft an interesting Shaper helmet where I've been spamming with Glyphic and Frigid and Pristine fossils to get a hat with Hypothermia support, and Socketed Gems deal more damage while on low life. So just a whole bunch of different like synergies there that all let me pretend to be on low life and get a bunch of damage out of it for relatively little gear investment. The whole setup could work with a ton of different skills. I initially planned around Blade Flurry, but I don't really want to play that. You could do like Blade Storm, you could do Perforate, you could do a whole bunch of things. I'm probably going to be doing Double Strike initially because I want to play around with Vol Double Strike because it seems like fun.
Yeah, sounds cool.
It's hard to lose 6 sockets these days, isn't it? Man, I like really struggle with wanting extra sockets on builds that don't lose any sockets.
Yep.
But losing 6.
The Counts Heart might go for like a base crit, really nice rare chess piece in the end game, but it's hard to pass it up with Bloodthirst, especially given in the belt and shield slot I'm losing life rolls already because Coward's Legacy doesn't have one, and neither does Aziri's Reflection. I initially planned around Viridi's Veil and a 6-link chess piece, but it was just too hard to fit it all in while also activating Viridi's Veil by wearing a couple magic rings. And I don't think Viridi's is worth using with only the one magic ring, though technically it could work.
I'm curious to see how that all goes. I'm enjoying the SSF problem of having too much good RNG, but in like too many directions. So you know when like you're playing a build, you're like this is cool, and then you get that one really cool item, like oh, I want to play that next, and then you get 2 really good items for a different build, and you're like oh, maybe I'll play that next, and the game just keeps spreading me out. So I've got 2 Cold Iron points and like 8 Fizz medium jewels. So I'm kind of like, I should maybe play Exannuate or something. Then the game randomly gave me like literally 8 Carcass Jacks in one day. So now I'm like, maybe I should try double corrupting some Carcass Jacks. That's really weird. Then I got a Replica Combs Heart and started getting some gear to maybe do Replica Combs Heart, Mind of the Council, Storm Cloud, like mana-based burning area, which I think could be really fun. Raiz is having fun. And then I got a Primordial Chain, and then all of the Golem Jewels. And I'm like, maybe I should do something with this. And it's just like, I just keep playing my Raider tracker. I'm having a lot of fun with it. And while I'm just trying to work out what I want to do, it's the game just like, what about this item? And I'm like, maybe I'll do something with that. So I'm hoping by the next Baeclast, I'm still not on my Raider. But yeah, maybe the game's just going to be like, here's like 8 shabs. And I guess we're doing a low life build. One thing I really want to play, similar to what you're trying to do, Octavian, is a... actually, I guess also similar to what you're doing, Ziggy. I really want to do Bloodthirst Doomfletch Prism. Like, I've got all the gear for it, except for the Prophecy, which is slightly important to upgrade into the Doomfletch Prism. So it's like, I've got everything but the bow. There is a div card for it.
Yeah.
And I've been really... the div cards is one thing I've been really unlucky for. I tried farming the Death's Oath set, and I only just finished the set, like, yesterday. And I'm, like, 1 card short from the Prophecy one. I don't know if it's just been, like... the game's like, here, just have all the uniques, but 0 div cards. But like every time I've tried to farm a div card, I've just gotten like 1 card off, and I just can't finish the set for whatever reason. But yes, that's sort of what I'm at. One thing that I'm curious to ask everyone before we get into like the main topics of the conversation: how has our performance been since the last one? Since we were all having texture streaming woes, Ziggy, have you had the same, worse, or better performance?
I feel like it's gotten worse. I don't know if I'm just getting more aggravated by it. But I feel like it's getting worse. I don't know. Like every single Maven boss fight, you know, the like group fights, every single one of those, the texture streaming isn't done until I finish the fight. like right until I'm like slamming the last boss, and then the texture's finally loading. So I do those entire fights, which I love those fights. I think they're a great addition to the game. Cool little group boss battles. I love boss battles, but it's really hard to enjoy them when the whole thing's like lagging and you can't see the bosses of their abilities. I don't know. Ugh.
Damn.
Go on, Raiz.
To be
What
honest,
about you?
kind of funny. Oh, who did you say? Who's
Raiz.
next?
Raiz, yes. Go.
Oh, it was me. Okay, yeah, I was gonna say it's kind of funny that Ziggy says that because I've actually, ever since they released that patch, like the engine patch or whatever, it's helped me a lot with loading in invisible stuff. And since then, overall, my textures have been better. But I think that's partially due to the fact that I also league started with Death South, and holy moly, everything was invisible on Death South like 100% of the time. I could not do like anything. I would go through entire maps without seeing a single mob like very frequently. It was really insane. But yeah, since then it's been a lot better. Hadn't really ran into a whole lot of issues, but actually today, yeah, I've been getting a lot of the squares again and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know. I don't know what's the matter with that, but hopefully, yeah, it's gonna get a little bit better again.
I've had issues still. There hasn't been a day where there wasn't problems, but the problems have changed, and I don't know. They're just as frequent, but they're in less dangerous areas. I've done a couple Sirus fights now, and none of his abilities have been invisible, thankfully, which was a real problem for me at League Start. But like, I think every single map I open, the first 2 packs are either invisible or made out of Play-Doh.
Yeah.
And then it's fine for the rest of the map. And the longer I leave the game running, the more and more the problem grows until I restart it. So
True.
for me, it seems like it's some kind of memory leak issue combined with the texture streaming problems. I don't know. I'm not a technically minded developer, but at least the problem's consistent now. That's good for me, at least. Like, I know where the problem's going to be every time I open a map. First 3 packs, I won't get to see them. So I play cautiously around those first 3 packs, and then I can keep playing the game normally. So the problem's like in this little corner now, and I can just like kind of not look at it if I don't want to.
I think I might relate to that because I've been playing in much more like small chunks because I'm not streaming. Like I'll play for like half an hour to an hour, close my client, go do something, come back. And I'm getting texture streaming issues, but it's like they're noticeable, but as you were saying, they're kind of like they're low priority things. It's like you curse something and it just looks bad, but it's not like I can't see anything and now there are bearers under my feet. One thing that I realized, which I found very funny, is I went back and watched a bunch of old videos, and I realized how desensitized I've become to text streaming. Like I go into the map and go, oh, it's the low poly mobs, as if that's perfectly normal, as if that's how it's always been. So yeah, it's very persistent for me, but not like invisible Sirus beams and stuff. I'll keep talking while Nugi chews, and then I'll put it to him when he finishes chewing. But I have to say, I'm very shocked that GGG's gone this long without making like a big statement about it. They've made like a few small posts, but we're like by the end of month 1 now, and we haven't had a like big, like, even if it's not texture streaming, even if it's a completely separate issue, like it's actually something to do with the servers or whatever, it is kind of weird to me that they haven't just been like, this is a problem. Nugi.
Well, this has also been going for 2 leagues now? This has been a problem?
Yeah, last league is what kind of like... It was last league it was introduced, wasn't it?
I thought it was like Heist.
Yes.
I don't know if I remember.
It was last league for sure.
We didn't have it in Heist.
Yeah, it was last league, yeah.
Okay. I've also had really long load screens too, which they...
Yes.
I remember they made a change to like try and help the texture streaming by like making the load screens longer so more loading would happen on the load screen. But now I get like 1 minute load screens sometimes, and then there's still texture streaming problems in that same zone. So
yeah, my load screens have definitely gotten much worse, which is fun when you like go back to town to pick up a gem, and it's like, oh, 10-minute load screen. Sorry, Octavian.
No, it's okay. I didn't have something too substantial to say. I was just going to say I really often get loading screens where I hear things happening and I can't see the video game. for like 5 seconds.
Mm.
And, you know, I know there's a grace period, so I'm not that worried I'm going to die, but still, like, it's worrying when I can hear a pack of mobs moving around and making whatever noises, and I can't see my character and control it.
Nope.
Right, go on, Nuggy.
Texture streaming. I mean, it's there. Every other map. It's like it's just always there. I'm always like I look at I enter a map, there's a curse. It's like I always have this little game I play. What will show, like, will my flask run out before the square appears? So it's like you can see up in the corner, right, where everything is like all, like this, the buffs or texture streaming. Like, oh, will that be ready before it runs out? Hey, I made it! Like 10 seconds later. It's like, oh, great.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know-
It's just annoying to deal with all the time. I think the main thing about the texture streaming stuff and the long load screens for a game that encourages you to change instances so many times, it's just frustrating that you're constantly, it's just shoved in your face all the time. Either that it's like a long load screen, which was super annoying for a while, and it's not great now. I don't feel like they haven't gotten shorter overall over time. It's just, I don't know, just less, and then the texture streaming on top.
Texture streaming problems, or if it is texture streaming, because apparently I'm beginning to understand that like not all the issues are related to texture streaming, like the invisible mobs and all that stuff. Like, so I think at this point the reason why they haven't like talked about it is I think that maybe like whatever they say, the community is just gonna be like, yeah, bullshit, fix it. So they
Yeah.
just want like a real fix. Yeah, people are pretty skeptical. But what did make me realize though, especially the items not loading, holy moly. Like having to hover over every single ultimatum item to see what it actually is made me feel like when I first started playing
Wow.
PoE, just trying to figure out like everything from the beginning, except now I don't have to read it, but back then you had to like read everything, and holy fuck does it take a long time to just like hover over, look at it, like not actually know the things. And in Ultimatum is just one item. If that would have been the case in like Ritual,
yeah.
having to over
my
that
God.
would have been so
To make
insane.
it really insane, imagine if ultimatums didn't pause and you had to wait for the item to load in. You're like, ooh.
You know, it's interesting because Ritual is still in the game, and I've never had it happen with a Ritual.
No, I've never had it either. It's just
No.
like I'm just like explaining it as a like that's pretty much what the game feels like to people who aren't that experienced, like 24/7, where they just like have to hover over every single fucking thing, and it's just it's I don't know. It seems like a nightmare.
I think that's a really good point that you make there, Raiz, because it's definitely a situation with where the community's at this league. Any statement GGG does make about texture streaming has to be on point. Like, there's no way they could make a statement just like, texture streaming, we're working on it. That wouldn't go like what do you say? So maybe they are better
Well,
off
they
just
could. Why couldn't they? Why couldn't they actually just address problems and be like, we don't have the, because this is what I feel like GGG does a lot. They're like, community says we are having X problem with texture streaming. Response, guys, it's not texture streaming. Okay, but it's still a problem, right? The problem is that whenever they communicate, they always like say, oh, but it's not that. But then they don't go and then tell us what is the problem and what's being worked on. It's like, no, you're wrong. It's something else.
all right.
But not really addressing the problem, but just skirting it to be like, oh no, you have it all wrong. And that's the annoying part.
No, that's fair. They do tend to do that. No, I'll agree with that.
Like the problem is they have to give like, I mean, again, they don't have to do it.
Yeah.
But at this point, it's been happening for such a long time that it feels like, I think for them, that they have to give non-answers essentially to all of this stuff. Because like anything they've said ever at this point in PoE from like the last 8 years, people pull up shit that Chris said 8 years ago about the game on Kriparian's stream and use it as fucking ammunition to like nuke them as much as possible. So I think they've just, understandably have grown overly wary of publicly speaking out to these issues.
Right.
So yeah, I mean they can do it, but in a lot of ways, addressing it kind of, I don't know, maybe even emphasizes the problem for like more people and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it's kind of like
True.
how content creators will often be in a drama, and they'll, if they just don't say anything, suddenly they don't get canceled. And yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's effective, but I think it does. I mean,
might
not
be
speaking
that-
out doesn't hurt the average player, but the overall situation does.
I mean, just to quickly just really
Or players
nail
on
on that
average.
point, I was on Reddit, as you are, looking for a pleasant reading experience. And one of the threads was about, I can't believe Bex didn't get fired for this. And it was a link. And I'm like, oh, what has she said? Like, she must have said something bad. And I clicked through to it. And it was just like a perfectly normal reply. Like, it was so boring, I can't even remember what it was. It was just kind of like, hi, I'm a community manager. Thank you for your feedback. And people are like, she must lose her job over it. And it's like, okay, maybe people are a little bit touchy at the moment, I don't know.
To say the least.
Just ever so slightly on edge. But, yeah. Does anyone else have anything they want to say on this? And also, I will give you guys the opportunity. If you want to talk about the whole streamer burnout thing, go for it. I do kind of feel like we've all kind of said our piece on it on streams and in videos already. But if you have anything you would like to mention now, go for it. And then we'll go into other topics.
Talked about it pretty extensively, not gonna lie. It sucks that people are getting
Yeah.
burnt out. It's good, though, if people are. It's a good thing, besides the streamer thing, but overall, it's good that people who are burnt out are recognizing that at least some of that is on them,
Yeah.
and they're moving on and like bettering themselves and putting themselves in like a what they would consider a better position and just becoming happier, because that's probably like being one of those guys who's like, PoE is the worst fucking piece of shit game ever. See you guys Friday for the last, and they do that for like the last 5 years. PoE dead game in this, like,
Yeah.
dude, you gotta move on, man. So I respect those sort of decisions a lot, because especially in the case of streamers, they're leaving behind a lot more than just another video game,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, I
Awesome.
definitely agree with that. And also, shout out to my best friend from school. Every time I talk to him, he just spends an hour and a half telling me how terrible World of Warcraft is. And I'm like, what are you doing tonight? And he's like, oh, I've got my raid. He has not taken a single break from that game since we started playing in like 2004. And yeah, whenever I talk to him now, he's like, oh, Burning Crusade Classic, it's ruined. I'm like, what are you doing then? Oh, I'm getting ready to do Burning Crusade Classic. It's like, okay, like maybe you need a break. But yeah, sorry, go on. Okay, well, I guess
I think just a little roundup here on the texture streaming thing.
yeah.
I wonder if they've just kind of like in-house had this discussion, like maybe even before the texture streaming, that this is not going to work probably for a while, and we accept the backlash for the future promise of, well, this is something that has to be ready for PoE 2, right? And moving forward in PoE. And so this is just how it's going to be. What do you think?
Maybe.
They're such perfectionists to the point where they don't fix stuff because the fix isn't perfect.
Yeah.
That would be a little bit out of character, but I mean, I can see it happening. That's been my long-standing hope, that like this entire texture streaming's now like more than 4 months situation is just kind of like, eventually it's gonna be better for everybody. Copium.
Sorry, the
But-
mate I was just talking about is just in chat saying tuned in at the right time. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I finished my thought anyway.
You gonna change your plans later tonight?
He's still playing World of Warcraft. Yeah, no, I will agree with that though, especially with how much GGG as a company cares about like their artistic vision for the game. Like we had to fight tooth and nails to get health bars above enemies. Like we had to. It took
True.
years of like the beta people were like, can we just have health bars? Like, no, it will ruin the art. And then eventually they were like, okay, fine, the players can have health bars.
And in that moment, they established that if we keep whining, they'll eventually change everything the way we want it. So we must keep whining.
I will say briefly on that, one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I see a lot of funny stuff in the PvE community, but I was watching Faded Connections yesterday, and they had PT and Yoji on it, and they were talking about what if we got all the streamers to like sign a declaration that we will all quit if they don't introduce an official Path of Exile Flask macro. Would they do it? They can't ban all of us. And they were like trying to rally up this big movement.
I would love if they did.
Dear.
All of us.
Yeah.
It'd be so good.
What would be
I'd
really good
sign
about
it.
that is if they ban everyone but the streamers who quit PoE because they were like burnt out, and then they come back and the only ones left. I was like, oh, I guess this is going quite well.
Become a mega successful.
Yeah.
I do. That's a very interesting way of approaching it. I was thinking about that the other day, actually. Like, what would they do if like Mathul just started using a Flask macro on stream? Like, would they actually like perma him? I don't think so. Like, they could ignore it when it
I
came
think
to a
they would ban
smaller
him
streamer,
immediately.
but
I mean, maybe the same thing that MP got, and MP has like 1K plus viewers and got banned for a thing. So I think there's a precedent set that someone with a large viewer base can be banned for a thing.
I don't
In
think they
general.
care enough. I mean, they
think they
would maybe
do.
ban him out of principle, like get him, like
You'd
that.
have to have
but like,
critical mass, I think, numbers behind it.
yeah.
The thing which I find like the best thing about that is if this like official union was ever going to happen, it'd happen literally minutes before they were going to announce they were going to do it anyway, and they're like, for fuck's sake, guys. But yeah,
Some guy has been saying that for like 10 years now.
yeah.
Just waiting for it's gonna happen tomorrow. I don't know. The Flask macro thing, it's so weird, especially since like it's detrimental to click all your flasks at the same time. I don't know.
They've all got
Like, on
different
the
like
China realm,
charges
it was-
and lengths and everything.
Yeah, like on the China realm is customizable. Maybe it's just in my head, but on the China realm, even though it's there and it's apparently customizable, like I didn't even give it a shot. Like it just doesn't seem efficient. But then again,
Well, but okay, so if it's not efficient, why shouldn't it be there?
that's what I'm saying. I
Yeah,
think it
that's
should.
fair.
Right.
Shit.
That's fair.
It has a downside to it. Like the downside just makes sense for what they're looking to do. Unless they have this like amazing fix, but it just needs a little bit more tuning, Copium, and it's been 5 years, I mean, they've been fixing Cannot Die for what? Yeah, ever
Yeah.
since it came out. And surprise, it's finally fixed, kind of, except totems, lol. I don't know why the totems are in the game.
Okay.
I
With
don't
that,
know.
Trialmaster. So last episode, I was the
Hey, what
only.
the fuck? Octavian was starting us off, Tarke.
No, it's okay.
Oh, no,
It
no,
wasn't
no, no, no,
partic-
no, no, no,
That's
no.
not
It wasn't
okay.
very substantial.
No,
We can
no,
move
no,
on to
no, 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 no,
Trialmaster.
no, 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 no,
I'm sure it was.
I want to
Octavian.
hear it.
I was just gonna comment on the thing with Raiz and say that the justification I see for totems is they don't move. That they're not like a variable within the pack. You know where the totem is; it's not going to move, so you can move around the pack and get to it and kill it. I guess that's like the justification that it keeps the cannot die effect, but it still has all the performance problems that it had before.
True.
Those totems are hilarious with Wild Ground Slam because you hit the entire screen, all the mobs get to 1 hit point, and the totem dies, but all the mobs are still alive, so you got to hit them again.
That wasn't how it worked before. It didn't do that before. Old Undying, if you killed the Undying mob and also brought everything around it to 1 hit point or 0 hit points, it all died at once. And it
It's kind of
doesn't
annoying.
do that anymore, and it's very frustrating. I don't know why that got
That's
changed.
pretty funny.
Pretty annoying.
But did that get changed this patch?
See some Herald of Ash from the
I
totem.
mean, I noticed it when I was playing Vol Ground Slam 2 for the same reasons.
Maybe-
brutality build can't Herald of Ash, Peppy Hands.
Oh, what if it was a secret nerf? Like, remember when they did that thing
you
where
can.
mobs actually have a hitbox and everything? Everybody thought that it was a buff for the players so they can dodge projectiles better and stuff, or attacks better. But it turns out that it was a nerf for the players because now the Grand Slam is like coming out as a wave
Mhm.
and not
Could be that.
actually killing stuff.
I'm so glad we let Octavian say that. We got a very nice heated
Perfect.
moment. Very well done. So
Bless
on the last Baeclast, I was the only player, therefore the best player out of all of us, to have seen
Mhm.
Trialmaster. Since then, how many Trialmasters have you all had? What about you, Raiz?
I've seen one,
Did you
but
do
it
the
was
fight?
in a total. It was with It was in my like. I've been mapping like 14s for a while now. Like the first 2 weeks for me were kind of like, I think Ziz described as vacation league, where it was pretty much that for me. I was just like chilling out and yellow maps and all this stuff. I finally did see one, and it was in the one corrupted Omega rolled map that I had in like 2 days, and I fucking had to skip it because the last item that it was giving me before was the wand for the blood thing, and one I needed for my unique tab because there's a ladder for that, and two I wanted to make a build with it. So if I die, then I lose my main character and then my reroll build too. So I skipped it like a pussycat, and I'm still upset about it.
And that's the only
the
one you've
word.
seen?
That's the only one that I've seen
Wow.
ever. It was like
I had an
escalating damage, escalating speed, vulnerability, triple damage with crit, and I'm just like, bro, I don't think I can do this. Oh, an extra AOE too.
What about you, Niggy? Skipped many Trailmasters?
one. The first one I saw, I skipped because it was, I don't know, monster damage or monster boss AOE with reduced crits and any resist and like 4 different section modifiers. So I just said
Ooh, sexy.
peace in a T16. I was like, peace out. And it wasn't really. Oh, and I had fire and cold mods. And everyone laughed at me for it. But then I saw another 7 and I killed them all.
Ooh, wait, another 7, so you've seen 8 total?
Yeah, I've killed 7.
Oh, that's real
Oh.
good.
Yeah.
You've
But
had
yeah, I actually played the game in like high maps.
Wow.
It's a 2% spawn chance in T14.
Did you see
plus
that post about variance on 2% spawns?
So
Come
I ran like the map. So there's like a little what's it called? There's a program to check the maps you run, and I ran like the map stats or whatever. I don't remember what it's called, but it's like there's a little website, and so I've completed just over 600 trials. Like actually,
that's
completed
how
them.
much I've completed, bitch. So don't tell me this.
But no. But okay,
about-
I have to. Okay, so I have to like.
Oh, I thought you were gonna be like 1,000.
No. But
2,000.
this like okay. So if I'm like at like maybe like 1.2% occurrence rate right now for the thing, that makes sense because it's slight. So I've run some lower than T14s as well, but mostly in T14s. And that's mostly where I complete them as well. And so if I have that and the occurrence rate is set to the same, like if that matches what I'm supposed to see, so that's good. But it should be 2%, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm expecting that people are running into is that whenever they get to like 7, 8 waves, which requires you to go to 10, it starts getting difficult, and then you bail out because you don't manage to get to those final waves. But the ones you do complete a lot of are the 5 to 7. But anytime it gets a little harder, you don't get these completions. So you might actually have gotten into these like final stages, but you never actually managed to go all the way.
Yeah.
So this
I
will
never
skew
skipped them.
numbers.
I always finished them. No, I didn't run 600 though. Red map's probably like
2.
no, like 11s plus. Okay, 14s
14
plus
plus.
easily like 150.
Right.
11s plus like probably another 200.
I can't
It's not
remember
like that
exactly.
unlucky, but
No.
still.
I believe Beck said the numbers were on average 50 plus tier 14s. You should see a Trialmaster. And then was it 100 or 200 for tier 11? I can't remember.
100.
100, yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
So there's also like this. So with any like low probability thing, there's also a high chance of bad streaks for a
true.
relative large percentage of players, right? So you can get, there'll be a relatively high amount of players who will have like 250, 300 even in a row without getting it.
Yeah.
And that really sucks.
Yeah, it's not good.
Right? And you can't really avoid that with a system like this. Like on average, you'll have the 6 out of 600. If you run 11s, you'll have the 50 out of, or like once in every 50, right? You will get these averages if you look at the entire player base. But some people will have like, I don't know, they'll have a 3% occurrence rate rather than 2, and other players will have like 1.5. And it all averages out in the end. So, you know, it's just.
I think it's a good thing.
It seems
It doesn't give Chad the opportunity
seems-
to laugh at my rip when it inevitably does happen. So I don't even mind, to be honest.
It seems rather strange to me that GGG flops back and forth on the mechanics of spawning a League Mechanics boss, though. Because if you cast your mind back to something like the initial implementation of Harvest, it was basically just a big meter you were filling up. And like, why was that better in that league? And now we don't have a meter. Instead, we have a 2% spawn chance. You know, why wasn't the Harvest boss just like a 2% spawn chance or something? Like, is there one that's better than the other, or are they both just equal in GGG's eyes and they kind of throw a dart at a board and the league mechanic gets to be either random chance or fragments or a bar that fills up and it's just you pick one at random? I don't see the justification for why one of the mechanics should operate so differently than the other in relation to a very similar thing, the end game league mechanic boss fight.
Okay, how about this? The ultimate system. There's a 2% chance that a splinter will drop. When you get 300 splinters, you can build a bar, at which point the bar will start to fill up for each kill you've had. 100 kills after building your bar, you get a guaranteed
fragment.
Yes.
Okay, I'll tell you this. I think it's right here. You skip the entire splinter system and you just have a bar that from the very first time you meet him, as you complete trials, he gets more and more upset with you, and you're building towards, without splinters, it's basically a much longer conqueror, you know the conqueror bar?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the harvest boss fight. Where you do harvests and it fills up the bar in the middle. Yeah, in Harvest League. I think there was some other thing. You had to beat all of the boss beasts first, like all of the unique beasts. But then after that, as you do harvests, it filled up the bar in the middle until you had a boss, and then you got to fight it. And then it went back to 0, and you could fill up the bar in the middle until you had a boss, and you could fight it. And it was a really, like, you know, it took a while. You had to do like 50 maps or something, or 60 maps. But you eventually got it. And you could get it faster if you did more dangerous beasts, from what I remember. You did higher tier beasts.
I hate that. That's not a good thing. I don't know. Like, it's like sub goals on streams where you're like, oh, if we get 1,000 subs, bitch, 1,000 subs, it's going to take a year. You don't want to get 1,000 subs. You want to get like less, you know, like a reachable number, something that's feasible. Like the thing about Oshabi, especially, seeing that fucking number, like 3 out of 100 maps, just made me so disinterested in it. How about the Trialmasters talking mad shit to you, okay? And the more you complete in a row, for instance, the more there's an entropy system that speeds up the progress to getting to that point. So let's say, you know, it just keeps like doubling some sort of entropy system. The fact that you can even do 100 without getting one, it just does. I hate it, man.
You know what a bar is? It's an entropy system, Raiz.
I think
not really. No,
but
because
it is, though,
a bar,
because it's like the way entropy works, and like if you look at it from evasion, right? It's like accuracy adds a number to every single like against your evasion, right? So it ticks up until you've been hit enough times in a row and it triggers.
I guess
that's like just a bar filling.
If we're going by a number, I wouldn't want it to be like you reach that point and you get it. It would be more so a situation where you can get it at any point, but the more you do that, the more likely you are to get it to a point where it's guaranteed. So you could still get really lucky and get it early on, but this way we ensure that
you don't
on
get the
average, nobody's going to get yeah, nobody gets like
Right.
really fucked up in this thing that's supposed to be like the league
Yeah, I think
situation.
ultimately what's
Okay.
really frustrating about a 2% chance to proc, and it's just flat 2%, regardless of what you do, is you have no input there. Like you can't do the mechanic better and be more likely to get the thing, or you can't, invest more into the content and be more likely to get it. Like the things personally that I find most enjoyable in Path of Exile in the end game are finding something and trying to min-max on it and focus on it and seeing a return for my investment in that regard, like rolling your watchstones for a particular mechanic and getting to specialize in that mechanic. And there's no way to interact with Ultimatum in that way. It's just you run the ultimatums and sometimes it happens and that's it. That is your full level of engagement with the system, assuming you have a build that can handle all of the waves and handle the boss,
I think that's
assuming we're past that point.
I think that gets to the core of it. You're not rewarded for doing well, you're just rewarded for playing a lot.
Yeah.
And it would be nice if you're doing those win streaks and you're playing really well and you're taking on those tough ones and going further each time. And he's getting crankier, and then you're getting rewarded for that.
Yeah. You could even tie in inscribed ultimatums if you wanted to have it be fancy. And like doing an inscribed ultimatum helps fill up that invisible meter that Raiz was talking about. And the higher the eye level or the more potent the reward from the inscribed ultimatum, the closer you get to it, which then would allow people to specialize even further in trying to farm Trialmaster. Because if you just want to focus on Trialmaster as much as possible, you just buy like 50 inscribed ultimatums and run him until he steps in and says, hey, screw you. You got to fight me now if you want to get your 3 exalts that you gambled.
Before we keep deep diving on this quickly, I've had 3 Trailmasters. How many of you had, Ziggy?
2. And I beat them both, by the way.
Yeah,
That was so
I didn't
good.
skip any of mine.
That's the thing we haven't talked about at all. Is I
We'll
love
get
the boss
we'll
fight.
get to that later.
Okay, we'll get to that. All right.
And quickly, what about you, Octavian? How many of you had?
I've seen him 7 times and beaten him 5 times.
Okay, now we can go back to shitting on the system. Go, Raiz.
I already forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, yeah, I do remember. Fucking why? Like, are there really people out there who are like, I'm gonna play Path of Exile because I want to beat the last boss of Ultimatum that we didn't even know exists? Like, they never told us. They said like something happens, but they never even told us that there's a boss or anything like that. So who really plays PoE to get to this boss and then they finally kill him due to like RNG and they're like, I have finished. I will stop playing now. Like, why? Just like make it more accessible. People are gonna play your game anyway. Not every system needs to take 3 months to to finish it. Like, not every single one needs to take that, especially when we already have a lot of systems that take a lot of time. I think it would just be fun to encounter it more. It's like with Katarina when it was early on. Now fighting Katarina all the time, it's fun. I like it. It's a cool fight, even though a lot of people don't like it. But I think Katarina is nice. Once you actually understand the mechanics, it's a cool fight. I don't know about the Trialmaster fight because I've never fought him, but
He's pretty cool.
Raiz, I can tell you.
it's pretty cool. Yeah,
It's a really fun
I
fight,
saw-
Raiz.
I saw a little bit of Ziggy's fight, but then I was like, fuck it, I'm not gonna spoil myself. So because he posted it on YouTube. Yeah.
Should we not talk about it then? I don't.
No, screw spoilers. We're talking about it.
Yeah, we're
go
talking about it. Before we do that, though, I do want to say, has GGG ever done a pity timer in a League mechanic? I don't think they've ever had. And I think we've asked them about it before, and Chris has kind of been like, ugh, pity timer.
Pity timer?
Pity timers are like the bar, right? Because it's like, well, you get it.
No, because a pity timer it's an RNG system, but once you've
I
gone
know,
past,
I know.
so if like when the average is 50, it's like, okay, you've gone past 50. Okay, now we'll add an extra 2% chance, and then every
It's
map
such a
past that,
semantic argument. Like what Nugi's saying is right. Eventually, a pity timer is the same as a bar because if the pity timer gets to the point where your chance to spawn is at 100%, that's just like the bar reaching the very end. It's basically the same thing at the end. It's just kind of semantics. But yes, I think they don't like calling things pity timers, but you can have mechanics that are achieve the same goals without being a pity timer.
Just like make it a new line of dialogue or something. Just spice it up, Suddenly he says some bullshit about your mother, Just keep it simple. And you're like, oh, I've never heard that before. Am I getting closer? And you probably are, Just
I mean, usually what it seems they prefer to do is add tools to the game for players to sort of make their own luck in a way. Like if there's a mechanic you want to focus on, they add in things like scarabs and prophecies and sextant mods and watchstone mods and all that. And you can use all of those tools for whatever mechanic you're trying to do that normally would have a 2% spawn rate. Now it's got a 12% spawn rate. When you get one, it's doubled. And also its brother is there. And like, you know, because you invested in all this stuff and you specialized in it. But again, you can't do that with Ultimatum, in part because it's the fresh new mechanics. So there's just not a lot of tools that interact with it. Maybe 4 leagues down the line, they don't change how Trialmaster spawn rate works at all. But there's Atlas nodes now for the Ultimatums, and there's Watchstone mods, and there's like Scarabs, and you can suddenly farm a Trialmaster every 10 maps.
True, like they did with Oshabi. It's really nice now.
Crap. Katarina.
No, Shabby.
Katarina, though.
Katarina,
like,
true.
As a counter example.
Wait, Oshabi.
So, yes, they could do that with Oshabi as well. I agree.
What?
What's that? But I don't know that that's like that's a solution. It's good, and it's a great way of sprucing up older league mechanics, but I don't see why that needs to be the way things are always implemented, and why we can't, you know, especially within a league, because next league they could just nerf ultimatums if they want to.
I'm surprised they don't just use the already existing mechanic for scaling difficulty / reward that they have, map quantity, and like make that scale. Like, because if you have a high map quantity, on average your maps are much harder, so you're doing a much harder version of the mechanic. So why doesn't that like scale up the chance of seeing a boss or something like that?
That'd be awesome.
Just to counterpoint your counterpoint, how many alls have we all seen in our entire history of playing Path of Exile?
Like 1.
Yeah.
3 or 4 every league, right, Nugi?
Yeah, if I delve it, yeah.
What the fuck? I've seen like 3. No, like
I actually.
If I actually delve, then I see them. Yeah, sure.
I don't know about.
If I don't delve, I don't see them. I don't. But you can't just
have
be
any...
like, I'm never sure. I've never been in the mine. What?
I like your Raiz impression. It's very good.
I've been in delve before.
Just to get a sense, though, since they did buff delve quite a bit this league, evidently, have any of us done much delving? Because I've dug, you know, not even to red material, so I haven't done much.
I've done all the delving that I've had just from me actively playing, and I'm probably still like potato delve. I don't know. I haven't seen any bosses yet. I've seen a few of the little chests, but
it takes so long to get delved to the point where it's actually interesting and catch up to where you are mapping.
Yeah, that's actually true.
I usually love that. I usually love delving, and like delving is just so like XP wise and everything. It's so nice, and I just always do it because I enjoy it. But man, this league, it just feels like it postpones everything else in the league so much. Like I'm not getting watchstones, I'm not getting passives. You know, I'm just not progressing in the game. That it's just never worth it, even though it is to me again very enjoyable.
That's a topic I wanted to get into later, but that's a big issue I've had personally because I'm going to say it. My name's Tarke Cat, and I enjoy heist. But whenever I do heist, I'm like, this is not progressing any content. Why am I wasting my time doing this? And I enjoy the gameplay, and I like the rewards that come out of it. He's gone.
My impression of leaving. Luckily, bro.
But, yeah, we can get back into. We'll get into that later because that's a big.
Yeah.
Part
What about
of
the
episode.
boss?
Yes, the actual ultimatum fight. Go for it, Ziggy. I know you've been desperate to.
Yeah, it was so unexpected when we first had it. I've been playing mostly co-op with Amy, so we were co-oping and just bashing. I was like, is this really long? Like, this ultimatum's gone forever. It was probably Stone Circles or something, so we've been in there for about 45 minutes. And then all of a sudden, we didn't even look at, because it actually says in little text, like, you will fight the dude. And we didn't know, though. We're just like, I just saw 2 nulls or whatever, and I was like, okay, sure, just keep going, autopilot. And then all of a sudden, we're in a boss arena. And man, it's such a cool fight. Also, there's variants of it, which I didn't realize until we did the second one. In the second one, he spawned little currency orbs that you can click mid-fight if you're like willing to risk doing that while fighting him. And they drop like, it's like looks like a little vial orb. You click it and a chaos orb or something pops out. It's such a fun fight. It's really intense, and it's exactly what I was talking about last episode with how like this league mechanic would be really fun if it was like fewer, tougher enemies, more focused on positioning and zoning with all of the existing mechanics and stuff like that. Mwah, it does that beautifully. Now, there's probably problems with the fight that we would start to see if we did the fight 100 times, but because it's pretty rare, the in doing it 2 times, my first impressions of the fight at least are very, very good because you're like getting chased around by the things. He does these time stop slams that put down like these spikes on the ground that do a lot of damage or something like that. And he's doing all these different mechanics that zone you on top of the existing zoning mechanics. I had escalating damage taken for the first fight, so that was pretty spicy. That was like the last mod we took as well. Very, very fun fight. Both times have been like sweat mode, holding my breath, very intense stuff. And it's great. Like it's the exact sort of content that makes me really enjoy softcore these days as well, because it doesn't matter that you're not like playing hardcore. You like really don't want to die. You're really trying your hardest. And you've got like your currency rewards on the line, and also you just kind of really want to beat like the fight as well. Very cool stuff.
And there's a chance for a big unique as well.
Yeah. The helmet's fun too. I got that both times, and that's such a fun item. The first one was like extra projectile or something like that, and I was like, oh man, we could crop this into a unique. But my one, both of mine became one of mine became a really crappy rare, and the other one became like a what's that melee crit multi helmet with increased damage taken?
Abyssus.
Abyssus, that's the one. It became an Abyssus with bad rolls with like reduced mana reservation. So I'm pretty jank, but
Get ready for the next trial.
I love those items though.
One thing that I do really appreciate about that fight is, as you said, when you have the freeze time, he does the slams. Someone was like, hey, if we're going to have a memory game, what we'll do is we'll give the players a moment to actually see what is happening. Unlike with Maven, where it's like, hey guys, memory game, bullshit everywhere, so that you very little time to actually look and read the memory game. I love the thing about the Maven fight, where the memory game arena is bigger than what you can have on the screen all at once. So based on your positioning, if you're dodging lasers, it's like, well, I couldn't see that region, so I'm guessing it maybe went there. Yeah. But no, I like.
Is that what the slams are though? I didn't actually realize that they're a memory game. I'm just like,
Yeah,
it's doing
so-
slams. I just avoided areas.
yeah, in a way.
He freezes time, and he's like 1, 2, 3, and then after a delay, it's kind of like an earthquake tendril thing shoots out from it. So you're
okay.
meant to be like, don't stand there, or there.
Yeah, I just avoided those areas as much as possible.
Oh,
Raiz is taking notes.
I'm writing this down, dude.
Yeah. Can't wait
I'm
for you
just
to see
tilted about what
Trialmaster
Ziggy
next
said.
league.
Ziggy's like so excited. It's so funny. He says that there's different like variants of it. Like, why not fucking 100 maps, bro? On
It's so
average, like,
fun.
why not make it more
You
of it if
never
there's
get it.
different versions of it?
Yeah, that's so good.
There's different versions. The variance mostly comes from the map mods and the previous things you add to it.
That too.
No, but the
that's
fight
like
itself is
additional
not that varied.
variants on top of the like he has 4 different like
Is it?
things that he can do in the fight, and I think he picks one of them, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Because that's what the challenges are based
I guess I'm
around
just
as
killing
well.
him too
Huh.
fast. I don't know.
I've only ever seen
Whatever.
him I've only ever seen him cyclone and then freeze time and do his sunders.
He's got the little
But-
totem things that chain you, and then he's
The
got
lashing things.
Yeah, and then
I
he's
have
got
not
the
experienced that.
orbs.
Oh, the currency I've seen. I didn't realize what it was, didn't click on it, and failed the challenge.
Yeah.
So that was
That-
good.
That's one thing, Raiz, you should look out for. There are these little totems. They kind of look like hearts, and they basically just root you in place, which is kind of dangerous in a boss fight because movement's
Oh
pretty
no,
good.
that's perfect for my build. The Orb of Storms guy, I just stand there and spam Tempest Shield like literally 5 times a second. So I'm not moving anywhere anyway. If it roots me, no problem. I face tank till I go to standard. That's my character.
Also, one thing. So on the last episode where I was talking about my experience with the Trialmaster, and I'm like, yeah, it was really weird because I chose the miasma, but the miasma didn't appear in my fight, and you were like, oh, Texas streaming, lol, 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 lol. I went back. Yeah, no, actually, it was invisible for the whole fight because my health was randomly degenning at points, and I couldn't work out why it was degenning. But then when you were like, lol, Texas streaming miasma, I'm like, that's why my health was degenning the whole fight. Oh, that makes sense.
Wonderful.
Yeah. But yeah, what items? So I've had the hat 3 times. Nuggy, you've had 87 kills, was it? How many gloves have you had?
No, 7. Oh, I've gotten 3 helmets. That's it. I've been pretty unlucky.
Also, apparently, because I really want the shield in SSF, but apparently the shield isn't from the boss. Grimro said to me that he got offered the shield in one of the
It's just an offer.
in the trials. Yeah,
Hmm.
I really want that shield.
I've only seen the helmet once, but he has offered me something really good as a reward for beating him every single time. He's offered me I think a couple times it was Exalt Shards, and then once it was a Calm's Heart, and once it was just 3x for beating him.
Nice.
So he's offered some pretty good rewards, even though he hasn't dropped his big money unique, which is the gloves.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, Hate Forge. Yeah. Every
don't even
time
look at the
I fought
rewards.
him, he's given me 1 Exalt. I will say that, going back to what Ziggy said, I do think it's a bit of a failure that you don't notice that the Trialmaster, every time I've had Trialmaster, I've been like, oh, I'm in the arena. I've never actually been like, oh, the next wave is the Trialmaster wave, because you just keep pressing next. I feel like maybe he should have a big booming voice line, now I will crush you or something. But
I mean, you get faded into his arena.
yeah,
I think that's pretty obvious.
after you've pressed the button, but when
Yeah.
the option, what I'm saying is when it's Trialmaster option, there should be a.
If you're running a Mirror of Delirium, you do lose your Delirium progress instantly on fading into the arena.
Oh.
Just in case anyone values their Delirium progress over a Trialmaster fight.
I was hoping to take the Delirium into the fight at some point. That'd be fun.
Aw. It'd be great if he was like, "Oh, you a coward." So then, when you didn't take it and took your rewards, it'd be like,
I don't know whether that means you can't get the fight in a Delirium orbed map, or whether it just works differently in a Delirium orbed map.
Oh,
Is that the thing, Raiz? Have you been running Delirium
Maybe
on all of
just
your maps?
Pops you to a different
Only.
instance
Yeah.
without it.
Surely it works in there with Delirium orbs. Chat's saying it works.
Right?
I mean, if
Yeah,
there's no
definitely.
loading screen, then
Yeah.
it's the same instance.
I wonder if the Delirium effect can freeze him. Like it does for rare monsters or stuff, where it locks them up in place and fires something at you.
Interesting.
If it can just freeze him for you and let you kill him.
So, to backtrack a little bit off the fight, how often do we feel like people should be seeing the endgame boss? If just
Trialmaster.
for any league, what do we think it
Any
should be?
Every time. Remove Ultimatum, keep Trialmaster. I haven't even done it, but I don't need to.
Hell, I would love it if the entire mechanic was like that. So
No,
Pretty
but
much agree
without
with you.
being silly, every time. So Nuggy's had 8 in total. I've had 3. If we'd all had 8, would be that's enough, or would we be I still wish I saw him a bit more?
honestly, I think the 50 map
would-
thing is okay if it was actually 50 maps.
Right.
The problem is when it's
Well, it's
250
50
maps.
completed maps.
I'd want it to be like Katarina, where it's pretty darn variable depending on how you interact with the system. That's
Yeah.
easier said than done, though,
That's fair.
because betrayal has a lot more minutia to it. You can choose to go for Katarina faster or slower depending on how you rank people up and where you put people and when you interrogate them and what deals you take and stuff. And there's just none of that really exists in Ultimatum. Ultimatum is you kill monsters in a circle,
Yeah,
and
but
then you kill
quantity,
more of them.
like you guys mentioned before, quantity alone would be
Yeah, that's a
Essential.
really good idea. I think that was a great idea.
A streak bonus makes so much sense with him because you piss him
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
Repeatedly.
Basically, some kind of input from the player impacting how quickly you find it. I guess you can then just move the question, though, and say, all right, well, assuming the player is playing optimally, how quickly should they find the boss?
So I think I don't know, 25 is a good
Yeah.
number.
That'd be cool.
If you then also
Life
force proper mechanics. If you had to, let's say it took you 3 to 5 to streak, and then you had to complete them continuously without failing, then 25 on average seems pretty good.
What if the Trialmaster randomly selected modifiers in the Ultimatum to like highlight. And if you chose those modifiers in your ultimatums, you had a higher chance of fighting Trialmaster at the end of that run.
That'd be cool.
So that would
Bad
kind of
idea.
solve two problems. It would allow the player to purposefully go for a Trialmaster while also encouraging players to take the more dangerous mods that people are just ignoring now.
Here we have
Like,
an idea.
when Trialmaster's like, you want to fight me? Well, fucking fight me with one flask. Do that.
I'm
Yeah.
making the Reddit thread. This is why Octavian needs to work at GGG. I'm doing it right now.
Except I'm making the counter Reddit thread that says Trailmaster keeps picking the anti ones that don't work in my build. He keeps giving me mana
Yeah.
reflected.
Raiz says that, and then every Archmage character he plays, he's like, "Oh, I can't do Trailmaster. This is a terrible thing. This is where Octavian should be fired from GGG."
No, this is why you get rid of the mods that completely kill certain builds and put in more just dangerous mods.
Yes.
Before we move off of the Trialmaster topic, just quickly, so are we all running every single ultimatum, not skipping stone circles, to the final wave? I'm running everything, never skipping anything. Ziggy.
Same. Yeah, running them all.
Octavian.
I kind of want to skip Stone Circle sometimes, though.
No.
They are better since they updated it.
Never skip stone circles. So what a
I was
weakling
skipping
does.
all stone circles, except now my build is the stone circle. Like, literally, I just stand in a circle because I can't move off of the overstorm. So I started doing them because I can't. Yeah.
That didn't answer the question. So you were skipping them all, but now you're not anymore?
I was skipping all this, doing pretty much all Trialmaster, but I was skipping the stone circles up until like literally today. Yeah.
Okay. And what about you, Octavian?
I've skipped one or two in really deadly maps that got out of hand by like wave 8, but other than that, I've pushed them all.
Nugi?
I mean, I skip them if I have better things to do. If I'm like pushing Betrayal or something, I'll just like, I don't want to bother with this right now. I'll just run a bunch of maps without them. Right? I mean, I'll check real quick. If it's something that's fast to clear, I'll go on till it's done. And then if not, I'll just like, oh, stone circle? Nah. Oh, survive? Nah. Oh, kill everything close? Yeah. Boom, boom, boom. Done. And then move on. So, I mean, as long as it's efficient, I take it.
All right. And then finally on the ultimatum thing, so we're approaching the end of month 1. How are we feeling about ultimatum now that we've kind of like fully experienced it, including Raiz because he's fought 58 at Trailmasters? How are we feeling that we've experienced the league in its like totality?
Worst
In its
ritual.
totality, or just the ultimatum part?
Just the ultimatum. Like now that you've experienced all the ultimatum content, like what it has to offer.
I think it's really fun.
Yeah.
I think it's it encourages you to take on risk that you weren't really doing before, and I think that is a massive success of the mechanic. Like early on in the league, I nearly died God knows how many times because I was like, another 10 chaos, another exalt. Oh my god, I need to get this or some good reward. I think that was a big success of the mechanic itself. I mean, the aura stacking stuff is still like I'm not happy with how they like introduce risk all the time. I think the ultimate, like after having fought the Trialmaster, I think that fight really well done and should have been implemented more. So it's unfortunate they didn't, but you know, we've talked about that. So yeah, I think the ultimatum is, and I really like some people asked, well, I'm not getting shouldn't we get a unique every time since he's so rare? And honestly, I like that it's a rare unique because you've already gotten your reward by the double up effect. Because I feel like that's like the guaranteed reward. It's the double up of the previous reward, which is, I think it's mostly a double up. I got 3 exalt shots, shit, and then you get 6 exalt shots, or 1 exalt becomes 5 exalts, or whatever he offers you from the trial. And I think that's really good that there is this, you're always getting something, but the unique still is the chase. And especially if you made him more common, well, you just nerf the drop rate of the uniques so that you want to farm the guy for the potential chance of unique, and that's exciting while also getting something exciting. So I think overall, as a reward system and encouraging you to engage with it, I think it did really well.
Ziggy?
I think it's done first impressions on the bosses, very good. The rewards feel pretty good. I like that it's a risk assessment league. I think that's successful. I think the things that are unsuccessful are spamming rares and spamming monsters and basically just running in circles, not really knowing what's going on a lot of the time. So if we can move away from that and move towards more of the like what's happening with the boss fight, not necessarily bosses, but more what's happening in that gameplay wise, then I think it would be a much better league. So I think on the overall, it gets dragged down a lot by the average moment to moment gameplay of it. Like I said last episode, the difficulty level of it is good, but the way it does that difficulty, I think, is the problem that I would love to see done differently.
That's fair.
I don't want to skip it at this point as much as I did Ritual. Like I started to really want to skip Ritual a month in, just because I was bored of it. But Ultimatum, I'm less bored of at least. Plus the allure of seeing the Trialmaster, and I also love these unique designs like the helmet and the gloves from Sirus and things like that. Those are really cool. I'd love to see more of that sort of stuff. High variance, exciting boss drops. I don't really know how to describe them, but things like Elder Watch Stones, the helmet, and the gloves from Sirus. I think those are all really good designs of like endgame boss drops that you can get that are really fun.
What about you, Octavian?
I think there's a few really good ideas in the mechanic that just weren't leveraged as far as they could have been, in favor of more of the same of what Path of Exile has offered in previous league mechanics, which, kind of is reiterating Ziggy's point, but building on it a little further. Like, yeah, I don't like the big blob of rare monsters being the main bulk of the threat in the mechanic, and it would have been cool if more of the threat came from encouraging players to take the dangerous mods through whatever means, or, from having a lot of the existing mods be more dangerous, but you remove some of the rares so people can focus on them more. So like, the T3 skulls are just like super deadly, and they have these like pinpoint fiery lasers that if you get hit by those, you are gonna take like 5,000 damage or something. But they're maybe made a little easier to dodge, more well telegraphed, and the rare mobs are less of a factor. So if you pick that mod, you can focus on trying to dodge it, that sort of thing. But all of that needs to be designed from the ground up. Like, that is not something where you change a few knobs and flick a switch and it's done. That is, at that point, that's kind of a completely different looking version of Ultimatum.
Raiz?
I pretty much, from a gameplay point of view, agree entirely with Octavian. Those things would have been great. Although at the end of the day, I'll still take this anytime over on Death Effects, please. Even though, like, literally 99.9% of the maps, I only ever feel threatened by Ultimatum in. Like, general content, the way I've been building my characters hasn't really done too much to me, or I haven't at least felt threatened, but Ultimatum definitely does that. And when it comes to the rewards, I don't, because I don't want to regurgitate what the other people said. But when it comes to, so I guess I'll mention the rewards. When it comes to that, I'm still not particularly excited. The rewards are very rewarding, but they're not very
Exciting.
satisfying, because they just offer me things that I then use to play the other mechanics in the game, either through like Xana or some form of crafting from something else. So I'd compare that very much to Ritual. I don't know if Ritual felt better in that regard due to you having to actually like actively make decisions, choosing between things. Even if it was a minor thing like choosing between 5 chromatics and 5 orbs of augment, that still felt to me a lot better than like getting Parandis coins at like wave 9 or something like that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There was one more thing, but I totally forgot what it was. Oh, I guess it doesn't matter that like that choice is there when it comes to Ritual, because at some point you have an overabundance of everything. So in that way, maybe it's a short-term issue that I'm somehow still having because of Vacation League.
One of the more specific side effects of most league mechanics being stuffed full of rares and having that be the way that challenge is built, things like Harbingers have a dozen rares and legions and ultimatums and all that. And this is a very, very specific thing that has been kind of building for a number of leagues now, is that you end up with the Sextant mod that gives Nemesis monsters 3 additional currency drops, getting more and more and more and more busted. And it is utterly ridiculous, this league. with a lot of different zones in the Atlas, particularly Valdez Rest, but you can do it in like Arthane with the Flash Breach mods and stuff as well. And I think eventually, we're gonna reach a critical mass where like that Sextant mod will probably just get nuked from orbit. I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, the
I
real
farmed
meta
it
is
for-
the flask strategy, Octavian. I'm surprised you haven't talked about that
Oh
one yet.
man, no, we're not gonna. We're not gonna talk about that. That's not necessary.
Oh, you don't want to crush your secret economy strat. That's fair.
No, I don't want to. I don't want to reveal my secret strategy. It's very dumb. I noticed when I was running some maps farming other better strategies that one of my watchstones I had incidentally rolled 5% chance for flasks to drop as 20 quality, and I was leaving every map with like 5 20 quality flasks. So I then purposely rolled the T1 version of that roll on all of my watchstones, and it turns out you can get like 30 20 quality flasks out of every single map if you invest into it fully. It's not very good, but you get a lot of baubles. If you want to be a bauble boy, you could do that. But the other thing I realized is that medium life flasks fucking drop in T15 maps for some reason. I don't know why. Why do I need an level 82 medium life flask?
Interesting.
For me, I think that Ultimatum is better than Ritual in every single way, and it surprises me how many people prefer Ritual to Ultimatum. Ultimatum's got more consistent challenge because Ritual was just easy. It was just easy, the league. Like I that's why I got bored of it.
True.
I never felt challenged. Maybe that's why some people like it, because they didn't like, actually playing the video game. The rewards more exciting. I find it more exciting to be like pushing harder and harder difficulty than have to think, can I keep going further for this reward? Then, oh, I happen to re-roll a good window. Like, I don't know, I found that whole thing kind of whatever.
Yeah, but do you feel like that reward actually, like outside of the occasional like Wave 9 or the Trialmaster, do you feel that actually scales that well?
I
'Cause
mean,
that's kind of
I get some pretty good stuff. Like, as I was saying, I keep getting, the game just keeps giving me like my 8 carcass jacks and stuff. So like, I'm like, yeah, this is some pretty good rewards, But I can definitely see like the amount of people I've had whispering me like, you've still got streamer client enabled, Tarke, your RNG is ridiculous. So yeah, I don't know, maybe it's just the streamer client being at it, but I've really enjoyed every aspect of it. I've also been very pleasantly surprised that GGG hasn't nerfed the difficulty into the ground. I was seriously expecting like substantial difficulty nerfs, and the fact that they made the rares a little bit easier. They made I think they made the rares slightly easier. They made the circle slightly bigger, and that was pretty much it.
Right.
But
I think it spawns less rares.
that was it. I was expecting like end of week 1, start of week 2, just like completely gutting it. But
my understanding of the change was that they made it so that there's I don't know if it's quite a hard cap, but essentially if you still have rares that you haven't killed left over from a previous wave, it's not going to keep spawning more and more and more on you. So if you're easily handling everything, then I don't believe it changed significantly. But if you were having trouble, it probably did get easier.
There's a little tell sometimes. If you kill everything really fast in some of them, and then the last wave, you basically know that it's your last wave, because all of a sudden it just runs out of mobs. There's just none left. And you just have like the last 5-10 seconds and you're like, where is everyone? And it just ends because you've kind of depleted the whole thing.
Sometimes get that from the very beginning. But I think like that was kind of one of my problems with Ultimatum, as much as I fully agree that like being threatened in a map is pretty important. I still don't fucking understand how things work. Like sometimes things are just really tanky. Sometimes it's the gorillas. Sometimes it's like the crystal mobs. I'm killing them instantly, and then some ultimatums they just take literally 0 damage, and I still can't figure out why. Like I wouldn't even see auras, or
I think the ruin infused ones are a bit tankier, so it might be like some certain like rares with rippy like life and stuff, and then I think they get a bit tanky if they're covered in stuff.
But remember the energy shield mod, for instance? Right?
Yeah.
Back in the day where it's like, oh, they spawn with energy shield. Guess it takes 3 times longer to kill this rare. I mean, that was a thing for a long time, and like regen plus that, plus resist, and other stuff. I mean, you just get a lot more of those things happening all the time in Ritual because there's so many rares, so just bound to happen.
I miss back when Bestiary was first implemented, and you could have a Bestiary Fertile Presence aura spawn on an Essence with regen, and have basically an unkillable monster in your
Those
map.
were some tanky boys. Also, I think what it could be, Raiz, your damage might have texture streaming. It's just the damage isn't loaded yet. But getting into like the real hot topic of the episode.
Wait, can I just on the
No,
reward just before we move on? So I think there's one factor that people aren't recognizing too much, and that's the fact that the actual monsters scale with like your map mods and everything. So like the rewards you're getting. So let's say I go into I'm very much inclined if I'm in an influence map and I need some influence bases to really make sure to go to the final wave and to juice up the map and then purposefully, do the trial. Even if it's an annoying trial, I will do it because they give so much HP or XP and they give lots of loot. Like the monsters themselves, you could probably build rarity on your gear as well for like great returns with Ultimatum. I think a lot of previous leagues actually killing and getting rewarded from the monsters themselves was not really. It's been very long since I felt like just killing and engaging with monsters was the thing that rewarded me. And I feel like half of the rewards is coming from that and not just the little the pick your loot thing.
Yeah,
it's like that's just a side thing.
I'd agree with
But
that.
did you? Is it just me, or did you notice that like they drop a lot of items like 6 sockets and rare items or even sometimes influenced items, but then they rarely ever drop like real currency compared to the amount of extra shit they get or divination cards. I thought I'm gonna be able to like get them to drop divination cards the same way you do with Alva. With Alva, I feel like it is a 1-to-1 ratio. I just get more shit by X amount. But with this, it feels like it's more specific to, like 6 sockets, rare items, and influence items, and not so much cards or
Possibly.
just currencies.
I would definitely. It could be completely anecdotal, but yeah, I've already struggled when I've tried to farm div cards this week, and
right.
I was like, oh.
They drop a lot of flasks.
Right. Okay. Moving on. We're not getting back into that. So, getting into like the juice of the episode. The current gameplay loop of PoE. So we've got leveling through the Axe, the Atlas, Sirus, Maven, and then grinding quality flasks. How many of us have gotten all of our Watchstones and Maven passives unlocked?
I would put those on very different echelons.
Yeah.
True.
Like those are two pretty big steps in their own right.
We'll start with Watchstones. How many of us have gotten all of our Watchstones?
No.
Just Octavian? Not even.
I mean, I don't have a custom watchstone for each zone, but I have all the base watchstones.
I mean, I have like a couple zones where I have more than 4. Where I've been farming them. I haven't been farming every zone. So I mean, I don't have a full setup where I have all the ones I want because there's RNG to how they drop, but I have multiple zones with 4. Sure.
Do you think it's?
Did you mean all the quest watchstones, by the way?
Yeah, I meant
all the
colored ones.
Yeah, the base watchstones.
I don't like once I start doing the Maven ones, I just kind of like if I get the other ones, I just whatever. Like I don't chase the other ones if I don't have to.
Right.
Pretty much same. Yeah, I'm in the same boat where I get just enough to kind of like satisfy my temporary needs, and then I'm Maven it up. I try to do both at the same time, but a lot of times it's just so much Atlas micromanagement with having to do like a different map every time in like every region. And then if you want to do one region, then realistically the best thing to do would be to like take off all your watchstones, get to the boss, put in all your watchstones, drop a guardian map, the next map, like take them all off, and it's just like,
good lord, man.
yeah, I mean, it's the efficient thing to do, and it's like, I mean, I'd never, right? Like, it's just so ridiculous. So I just get it to a comfortable point where I feel like I have control over the way my conquerors spawn, and then I just fill it up with the remaining Maven ones.
They're almost at odds with each other where, like, if you're really enjoying whatever Maven things you've gotten set up than to continue progressing. And that's kind of where I've been. I've been really engaging. I really like Betrayal. It's come back in a big way for me. But to like engage in that means that I'm not doing any more Watchstone Sirus-y progression. They're a little bit at odds with each other in that way, it feels.
Do you
Okay,
do you
so
not think it's
this
an?
is-
Oh, go on. I'll let you say that. Yeah.
It's a bit of an aside. I think Raiz might get mad at me. I don't know, but if you really like Betrayal, you should pay 12C for Harvest because you get so many
What? No,
master
you don't.
missions.
That is not true.
Maybe I'm just lucky. I've been getting
Yeah, but
lots more.
That's because you're lucky. I mean,
Well,
if you
it's
can
one
afford,
player,
I guess,
so
I
it
guess
can't
it
be that.
depends
Yes,
because 12 is a lot on SSF. Just saying.
this is true.
And so if you
I
can
am
pay
playing
it
in
every
Trinity.
time, I mean, I guess sure, but it's a lot to pay for the rare occurrence. It's pretty.
I've been chasing
Like how
certain,
often would you say that you get master missions from Harvest?
every other
Every
harvest.
other?
What?
What?
I've probably done like 50, 60 groves at this point. I've been chasing for jewel implicits that enable certain upgrades in my builds, not getting them, but getting a lot of master
Every
missions instead.
other. That sounds.
That's crazy to
Sounds
me.
like
I've been getting
streamer
a
client
lot
to
of
me.
harvest.
Sound right to me.
When I checked my, I can actually check right now.
I have
'cause I
like
uploaded it.
40. I've been farming June for some upgrades, and I have like 30, 40 June missions left over
Yeah.
after doing like 30 or
My
something.
average on my harvest is like a 16% spawn rate. So overall, I feel like I've been getting them a lot. And I do not feel like I've been getting a lot of Junes because I love June, you know? Depending on what's on the Zana missions, June just enables every other mechanic for SSF. It's so clean to farm.
Mhm.
And you're doing it in Hamlet anyway to like generate missions. And then you can go do Valdo to like fill them up. And it's super clean and super smooth. It's really comfortable. But yeah, I
Yeah,
haven't
I
really
mean,
been getting
I-
master missions of a harvest a whole lot at all.
I'm just one player, so I
True.
could just have gotten lucky.
Um,
It's certainly possible.
what I will say, so people watch this will have noticed there's been a slight like desync delay. That's because Octavian's coming at us from the official GGG streamer client for this call, so there's a bit of a lag
For
there.
Discord, yes.
Yes.
The GGG streamer client for Discord.
Discord, yeah. Yeah. So do you not think that there's a slight issue? I realize that you've said that you haven't felt like compelled that you need to unlock all the Witchstones, but is there not an issue that if a podcast of professional Path of Exile gamers hasn't even unlocked all the Watchstones, or we don't even feel compelled to unlock all the Watchstones, isn't that a slight problem? A month into the league?
Benefit.
I
don't
mean,
think-
I don't think
It's
that
not-
in itself is a problem. I mean, if you
Yeah.
unlock all the systems you need to engage with, and that's done, then that's fine. I mean, what like, if you can get to Awakener 8, then you're at Awakener 8.
I mean,
It's balanced around that.
my point being is just if it's a month, I guess it's less of an issue if we've chosen not to do it. But if it's like if it takes us a month to only just get to the end of a system, then anyone on like a half reasonable playtime, when are they going to get this stuff? Like end of month.
But I feel
2?
like you're I just feel like you're misconstruing it a little bit because it's not that like we are at the end of the system way earlier than that. It's not like we're like getting to the 32 out of the colored ones. It's not something that puts like you've already
And there's no value.
yeah, it
Right,
doesn't add
yeah,
anything
that's
extra.
fair.
It's like that's just because that's like a completionist kind of point of view that you have to. But it
Pretty
serves no actual purpose if you just get the
You can use them. You can use them to store.
yeah,
sextant
that's
modifiers,
that's why I've
over
been like
in the
completing a
little
few more
boxes.
for that reason.
That's fair.
I think like the part of conversation you're trying to lead to is the like just amount of time it takes to get to the
Yes.
interesting stuff in Endgame right now, which is
Yeah.
very valid discussion. But I think this particular angle
It
for
made
it doesn't
it
make much
made
sense.
more sense when I was grouping it with Maven, and then you were like, no, not with Maven. And then it's like, oh, that's kind of the whole. But like with
Well,
Maven, we can
I-
agree because that's where like all the Atlas juice comes from. Is that not too? I feel like that's too back. Like we even said in the last episode, like the reward is too backloaded.
Can I
Yeah.
can I
Mhm.
talk about something here? Or Were you going to throw that to someone else? I'm sorry. I
No,
didn't
you're
mean to
not allowed
interrupt.
to talk in this podcast,
But-
Octavian. No discussion from you. Only Raiz can talk.
I think. Go ahead, Raiz.
No,
I've been
go-
feeling that
go
all
Octavian.
along. Finally,
I think it was one of our podcasts in the middle of the league, last league, where I said that I kind of viewed some of the Maven Endgame and the Forgotten Realms, is that what it's called? Uncharted Realms? Uncharted Realms nodes as being not core content. And I still kind of hold to that. Like the points in the center of the Atlas are extremely powerful, but you can get the majority of that power, especially if you're willing to respec as you change strategies, with like 6 points or 8 points. And I like the existence of something like Feared in the game, which is just so disgustingly hard that the majority of builds aren't capable of doing it because it's aspirational content. And like, yes, there is a reward of 2 Atlas points locked behind that, but I don't think those 2 Atlas points are necessary to experience anything in the game. You can farm pretty much any competitive endgame Atlas strategy with only having done Formed, Twisted, and Forgotten. Or Formed, Twisted, Forgotten, and maybe also Hidden. But Hidden's pretty darn difficult. Like,
So
I don't know. I do see Maven as core content, and I agree with you that the Maven grind is a bit too onerous. I'd like to see that shortened down. But something like Feared, which to me seems to be like the pinnacle of the hardest stuff in the game, I'm okay if Feared is very hard to reach and very hard to complete. I think that's fine. It's Feared. Its name is the Feared. It's supposed to be very fucking hard.
So I think what if to backtrack to Targe's point about, well, isn't it weird that we're not reaching the generally accepted, well, we complete our watchstones, we've completed like our quest line that we're expected to go through, and we haven't reached that at this point. And I would agree that there is this, like, not having gotten to like the 2 quests, the Awakener and the Maven, because now we have like 2. We're basically forcing 2 quest lines at the same time rather than 1. And the one is, it's easier to like decide where we go, and we're constantly distracted with, oh, we need to set this region, that region, but we're behind here, and then we need to unlock that thing, and then to further progress and unlock our Atlas, we need to first get at least a couple, what's it called? Like, for instance, with master missions, like, you're very much encouraged to get the 2-pointer early on in your Uncharted realm to have enough master missions and all this like side content being locked behind this endgame system at the end first that you have to get while still getting 4 watchstones over here. And those passives, it gets very messy. I had a long thing on this, and what I ended up with is that I think that the map drop system needs a revamp. And I say that because it made sense before, when if you're pushing Awakener, it doesn't matter what map you push. And there's this side objective of unlocking all the maps because it gets bonus and all this. However, if you have that system paired with the pushing the Awakener system, paired with the unlocking the Maven system, now you have too many systems with too many RNG factors involved all at the same time, and you get stuck with like, oh, I got 5 canyon maps. I can't use any of them because I've already revealed Maven here. Because I cannot decide, even because it takes a long time to get to the option of picking the favorite system, because that requires you have all the maps unlocked already. So I think the map drops needs to be much more targetable if you have all these different mechanics with random factors, and where you are supposed to target specific maps one at a time to progress yourself. And you're constantly getting stuck in this, oh, I either need to get lucky with the horizon or do some trading or something. I think that's kind of just, it's slowing down the whole progressive, because why does it matter that I can, if I have to run 10 maps to say unlock or to run a fight for Maven that is already gated behind the currency, the fight Maven currency dropping, why does it matter that I get to pick where I want to, like, what maps to set it up? It's still 10 maps you have to go through.
Yeah, would it? I don't know that it would make it better, but I just think it's interesting to pose the question, like, would it break the Maven system if you could do 10 of the same boss in an arena?
They don't like that though, right? That's what shaped maps were, and they were trying
Mhm.
desperately to move away from that. And even now, with like that is somebody in the comments is gonna be like, that is in the game, Noogie. It's called the preferred system, and it's like, well, what are you gonna switch it out every time? But I mean, that's the best that we have.
Yes,
In
and
yeah,
The Maven's progression is far more organic and makes sense with the map system a lot more comfortably in like the way you want to just kind of like progress compared to the Awakener progression system, which is extremely rigid and requires you to like change what you're doing and run into walls and not getting any progression unless you're, moving those watchstones around and changing locations and doing all these sorts of things. It's like now I'm just realizing that like I kind of wish it was just Maven and not the All Awakener thing. I'm kind of sick of the watchstone juggling and progression of that. Whereas the Maven progression is pretty smooth. I don't know.
I think Awakener, like the juggling of the watchstones and everything. If you could just like, if you have a sufficient amount of watchstones, being able to lock your awakening level at a certain point without like having to jumble up your watchstones would go such a long way. The fact that right now I want as much awakener level as possible because I'm looking to like drop certain things, while simultaneously to drop maps I have to like modify that in ways that don't favor the system at all. It's just very tilting. Like I don't always want to have all my watchstones in. So the most efficient thing for me is to take all my watchstones out except the preferred map that I want in the preferred region, right? So that those ones I leave in so the map can drop. Get to the boss, put all my watchstones in, kill the boss, take all my watchstones out again. I mean that is like the way to play the game efficiently, and like the fact that that's even a possibility is just very frustrating. And I think that micromanagement like could really just go by being able to lock that.
If you could like, I don't know, when a watchstone is socketed in a citadel, if you could like alt click it and then that watchstone favorites that spot in the citadel, and then you control click the watchstone while it's in your inventory and it just jumps back into where it was.
That would go a long way.
That would be really nice. It would not change the system fundamentally. It would just give you that extra little shortcut to make what you're doing faster.
Sure. I mean the thing that I really do like about watchstones, because people often use watchstones to kind of get their higher maps, but the fact that you can use your watchstones to get your lower maps and like specify a region by overflowing all the other regions with high tier watchstones, therefore locking yourself out of being able to drop those maps at like a lower level, that sort of stuff is really cool, because then I can just drop maps in a specific region that are low level. And that wasn't really something that you could accomplish with shaped maps, because it would always up there, everything would go up. And just having that, like systems like that, is really freaking cool, which is why I really like the current watch those systems. I just really wish that it wasn't as much micromanagement. And yeah, Maven is a huge part of that, like having to run a different map every time. Yeah, it's because regions are so important, you know? It's kind of hard to just have an infinite number of maps if you're running all of your Awakener stones in like every region every time. I mean, I've been playing quite a bit really and pretty seriously in those red maps too, and I still run into situations where I'm like, oh, even though I had watchstones in this zone and in this zone, I have like 3 Valdo maps and I'm about to run out because I've been running it, but then that forces me to run like Haywork because I have 80 of those instead. And now like I do one and then it drops 1 Valdo, so I do 1 Valdo and then I jump back there, or like I do series of them. I don't know. I don't always want to be doing different regions, and that's why I don't know. Some of the comfort of the passives is lost on me that way as well, because it feels so good when you're actually doing the thing that you want to do, and the fact that you can modify the gameplay to fit exactly what you're looking to accomplish that day. But then, yeah, simultaneously, so many things just get in the way of that system.
I just
Yep, go.
With the
oh go on.
was thinking like with the favor system, right? It's like, oh, if we just use the favor system, but even sometimes when you're in the favors and you're like waiting for like one map to drop. I think because there are so many objectives you constantly have, waiting for that one map to drop and you go through 3 maps to progress that one step in the hopes that you'll get lucky and get that thing drop over there. Basically being everything else you want to do is on hold is off. Because you're constantly like, if you can get into a flow at certain times that feel really good, but you're also just on hold a lot, I feel. And I think that goes back to the, well, I don't, like, it takes a long time to progress the system because there's a lot of these like holdups all the time that don't really need to be there anymore. Because there's so many systems to integrate, like there's so many steps we need to take. So there's no need for these holdups to happen so frequently.
Like the problem with that too is that you run. I feel like if you keep the system around in the current form, you're gonna run into an issue where, because it's so punishing to switch regions with passives, players are eventually just going to be like, "Oh yeah, Lyra is the highest thing, so you just don't do anything else. You do Lyra, and there you go. You're done." And I mean, you can get your Maven that way. You can get your Awakener eventually that way once you've done like the first 20 Watchstones. And like you would, I don't know, I would hate for that to be the game where builds are already in a situation where in the past the most popular build was being played by 10% of the community, 5%. Now the most popular build is played by like 40%. It gets just really extreme. And for the just intricacies of the entire Maven passive tree to be like boiled down into just running one region because rebuilding Maven in another region is just not that efficient and it wasn't even that good in the first place economically. Like that would suck. It works on SSF, but on Trade League, shit.
I think my issue with all of this is, and I was saying this before the podcast started in the pre-show, I feel like the average Path of Exile experience kind of used to be, okay, I've made a wacky new build, I get it to maps, I run a couple of maps, let's make a wacky new build. And the people who just want to keep making wacky new builds, I feel like they really just kind of get locked out of a lot of this Maven content. Because I feel like so much of Maven and the Watchstones require you to just be in the Atlas. And to me, I might be completely wrong. I just feel like that whole like reroll, try new build stuff is a very large portion of the player base. And as I was saying earlier with Heist and with Delve and all that stuff, we have all these systems which is anytime you're not progressing Atlas, you feel like you're wasting time. And I feel like that if we keep this current Maven system, that's only going to get worse the more leagues GG adds, because they're going to eventually add another league that isn't another Atlas league. And I think that there's too much time gating with backloaded rewards, which if it's a good thing or a bad thing, if it takes us a month or 2 months to unlock it, that's another debate. But it like goes against what I think the core gameplay loop of Path of Exile is, which is to, experiment and try lots of cool new builds. I don't know.
I'm the perfect example of who you talked about.
Yeah.
Like, I've done that before, right? Like get all Watchstones in 2 days. I've done get the Maven really quickly. I've done like entire Atlas resets. I tend to do it pretty quickly. This league around, again, Vacation League, I was just like, yeah, I'm going to fuck around on different builds. I got nothing done in the first 2 weeks. My passives, my Watchstones, just nothing. Fucking around does not work. Yellow, if you sit in yellow maps, you're goddamn wasting your life away. Nothing happens ever. It's not a matter of like getting a base and then crafting that up into like the item that progresses your character. No, you're getting nothing done with that other than just having fun with your build.
Which is fine. You're having
Yeah,
fun.
I mean, yeah, not everybody needs to be very ambitious about their like kills and stuff. But for me, I can afford to do that because I'm like, oh, at some point I'm gonna do it, or oh, I've already done it before. I'm not even like I don't have to I don't have anything to prove to myself or anybody else. But the people who want to do both simultaneously, I mean, you're just never gonna get there. Like it's fucking impossible. takes a long time.
I think so.
okay.
PoE, one of PoE's like core philosophies is that you can get anything anywhere. Basically, you could find a mirror on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you don't go and you do
True.
all your Alva or what is it called, Maven passives, you're not gonna get your rewards anywhere because you're so far behind in how much like what can drop. You can't just roll a high map and run it.
Yeah.
And be like, yay, I'm getting stuff. You're getting so much less because you haven't like unlocked the whole thing. Be it the Uncharted passives plus the 4-way and the right stones with the right rolls. Because it all like emphasizes it. It's not like this like if you go back in time where you just rolled maps and you hoped to get all the way up to 16s and you go to 16, I mean you got some loot and stuff, but now it's like, oh no. If you're stuck in the setting up phase,
Mm-hmm.
things are slow. Things are not rewarding in the same sense as they could be potentially.
I had this conversation with Bex as well, and this is very much an SSF problem. But I was saying, like, in the context of playing a trapper in SSF, I want to farm my trap gloves. Where do I find my trap gloves? Alva. So for me to start farming, I need to unlock all the Maven stuff, get all the Alva stuff fully juiced out, and then start collecting the master missions. So I want my bonus. Like, I've got to do all of this setup just so I can start the grind. And that just feels so, like, it feels like there are so many things now where it's like, oh, you want to farm Betrayal? That's your thing. Or you want to farm Delve? That's your thing. You got to do all of this rubbish just to start the grind. It's not even a case of like, oh, you've done all this now, you're done. No, you're doing all of that just so you can even start. You know?
What's the what's the solution there though? Like, do you take the power that's behind Uncharted Realms nodes and make that core? Do you take the power that's behind Atlas passive trees and make that core? Or do you where is the problem?
Okay.
Because the existence of things like Atlas passive trees necessitates a reward for unlocking the Atlas passive trees, or else what's the point?
I mean,
and that reward needs to be something of some value.
One thing they could do is if they this might be too wild, they could decouple passive unlocks from the region. So you just unlock passives and you can put them in any region you want. So if you want to unlock all the passives, you have to do all the Maven fights in every single region. But if early on you were like, I'm just going to bang out Valdo's Rest, you could do that and then put them into Haywork or whatever just because of your Atlas thing. Then you wouldn't have the issue of like, I want to be unlocking Glennick, but I haven't got the right Atlas drops for that right now. So I'm having to kind of do this scrimping and saving to collect the right maps to then go into this region. I feel like this region gameplay, like I understand why they're doing it, but I think that all of our systems are so reliant on regions that we're kind of like, it as you said, it doubles down on the map problem. It just where you feel like, oh, I haven't quite got enough. I don't know. I think regions are the issue. Maybe, I don't know.
Okay. To go on Octavian's point with because I think they're doing the right thing in certain areas and doing the wrong thing in the others. So on the Atlas, I think it's actually fine. I think having more control or like just make it less obnoxious, go through your jumping to like all the different maps you need to unlock. I think they could be way more forgiving on that area. Like, yes, we have Horizons, but like all these like tools we got with Horizon Orbs and the favor system was for the old system. So I need that, update that. That helps the individual region progression. I think that's step number one. I think you need to uncouple all master mission from the Uncharted Realms. It cannot exist on there. Because if you have to do that first, I think Uncharted Realms should be strictly endgame. Like that should be what that's about, right? Getting like you run the synthesis stuff there, you run your elder stuff there, you run your awakener stuff, like the high-end awakener stuff. All that makes perfect sense on Uncharted Realms. But having this, like for instance, the just the master mission existing there, and I would say even the Zana is problematic. Because these are progression systems that I get why they can be there, right? Oh, we can use them later, but I think if you balance around a progression system that you're supposed to engage with. Like we meet the betrayal masters in Act 9,
Mm.
right?
I can
And
understand
I would rather have it so that by engaging with the betrayal system, you progress the betrayal system.
I'm curious where your thoughts are on the Sexton and Watchstone ones then. Like whether
That I'm not sure of.
like because Sextons are arguably a progression tool. If you're
Yes.
trying to break into red maps, you'll have an
Yes.
easier time doing that if you have 4 Sexton charges as opposed to 3.
True.
I
I'm
mean,
not sure about that one. I haven't spent enough time on that one. I mean, it's obviously very good with Sextons.
I mean, you're welcome to just.
Sextons
Okay.
are, I mean, they're very. We get a lot of them. It's a resource we can kind of use quite liberally. So I don't think there's that much of a problem.
So a solution of tuning up baseline master missions would be acceptable too then, and leaving the extra Zana effects and stuff on the Uncharted Realms. And basically go back a patch because they cut down master missions this patch to some degree.
I mean, I would like to see some actual progression on the actual master. Maybe.
How do you
I don't
mean?
know, like engage with the master, you get more progression. Maybe you unlock your first temple and you get something. I don't know. I just decouple it from the atlas if that's what you're engaging with. I don't know if you can do that, if that's what they need to do, but I just feel like the progression systems needs to be progression systems. And I feel like the masters are that.
This might be like a separate point, but I think it's all kind of linked, and someone actually said something similar in chat. This kind of goes back to something that I said when we had Rory on the last podcast, where you can't drop the best items anymore because the best items require like double influence or single influence eye level 86 with some veiled Maven orbed. Like you can also kind of get in this weird sort of trap where it's like, okay, I want to progress my build. What do I need to progress my build? I need like an Elder Siege axe of a certain eye level. Not so much now since they've reworked bleeds. But it kind of feels like everything is kind of like gated, because Path of Exile is all about bases now. I feel like all of my crafting projects don't start until I have the right base. And all of that is just like high reds. And it feels like I don't do that much in terms of progression of my character in like the yellows, other than I might ID up. So like I might ID something off the floor and be like, oh, cool, throw it on. But it kind of like feels like you have this weird thing where like you just need to be doing the tier 16s, and if you're not doing the tier 16s, then you may as well kind of not be bothering with anything. I don't know. Would you disagree with that or agree with that, or? And I feel like with how veiled craft, because like veiled crafting, if you want to veiled craft something, the proper way to veiled craft is using meta mods and like the big exalts. You're not going to do that on like a 78 base, you know?
Depends on if it's influenced or not. I think that's mainly an influence-based thing. There are plenty of items that do not require influence at all. With the upgraded essences as well, I think there's enough stepping stones before the whole base crafting thing that kind of becomes like the endgame chase.
But even with the non-influence items, you're still wanting like what, eye level 84 minimum?
I mean, it depends on it depends on what you're trying to craft for.
Like without Harvest, I don't feel like the item levels matter nearly as much. With Harvest, I felt like I always needed the item level for it to work. But now it's like, I'm playing a CI build. I'm like, 78 will do. T2, big deal. Get that tier 1 hybrid or something. Like it's not. It wasn't as the thing that you're saying really rings true to me, because it's a huge gap that I've really felt on all 3 of my last characters. I've played like 3 characters, right? Doing the whole like yellow map thing. And then my last 3 characters were like, I get to red maps and like really game it up. I have not upgraded a single piece of gear on any of those characters since entering maps. Now, one time in SSF, and I've been running 14s, I've been killing Guardians and your Shaper, all that stuff. Like, I've changed maybe like 2 items, realistically, and like one character is fairly fresh, so that might still change. But yeah, in my case specifically, I just enter maps with like okay gear that I farmed up in yellow maps, and then by the time I get to even pick up like 1 or 2 bases, and then eventually craft them into something that I actually like for the character, I've long been like Maven capable and Awakener 8 capable, and it's just good to go. It's only really what Octavian said, if I want to push like pretty much the feared, that's like the only one. Because even like Uber Ziri was very handleable, except in my case I fucked up. I was like, oh, should I run this Uber Ziri? And then I forgot to turn off Maven, and I'm like, oh, whoops.
Did you make it through that?
Oh,
one?
I made it through the Vols, and then I made it through the ads, and I'm like, oh, I feel pretty confident, and I can do Uber. Yeah, let's do it. And I get into the room, and I just see her like freak out, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, and I just had to leave. My character was like level 80 or something, you know. It's just not the right time for that specifically. But
Harvest added this thing where you like had these regular upgrades to your gear, which is really fun. I feel like Betrayal's taken over that now that Harvest is effectively non-existent in that regard. I certainly haven't gotten a single upgrade from Harvest while I've been progressing any of my characters. But now I've been like focusing the Betrayal thing. I feel like the add Veiled mods from Ashling thing is like really fun.
That's so strong.
Having your items with like a missing affix. So I had a good example with the strength stacker is you can do triple strength mods if you have like strength from an essence, for example, on a ring, and then you can Ashling Veil on like say strength dexterity, and then you can mastercraft on strength intelligence and have triple strength rolls, which is really fun. So I was like that was like an upgrade path I was really excited to go for. I ended up getting like minimum frenzy charge with frenzy charge on kill, and I was like, oh sweet, not exactly what I was going for, but it was still a very satisfying upgrade. So definitely dip into that Betrayal stuff now, because it for me is taken over from Harvest in a way. Definitely not as fun and engaging as Harvest was for upgrading gear, but it's pretty good stuff now.
I like as well that the addition of the Veiled Chaos Orbs and the fact that it respects meta mods means that you have this much more expensive route you can take if you just don't want to be bothered to farm Ashlings for a lot of gear. Like, if you don't mind paying 2x each time for prefixes can't be changed, or I guess in the case of your ring, suffixes can't be changed because you had a bunch of strength mods, you said, you could do that and then hit it with the Veiled Chaos Orb, and you basically just farmed an Ashling and Ashling slammed it. Sort of,
Harvest,
but for 2x.
I can just very quickly, I ruined a perfect weapon that I never would have ever replaced. I threw an essence into a dagger, hit the top cold damage to spells, +1 cold gems, and I'm like, ooh, and it had an open prefix, open soft, and I'm like, yo, this is gonna be big. So I did prefixes cannot be changed, hit it with the Veiled Orb, it hit tier 1 spell crit. The Veiled mod was another suffix, and it was then 1 open prefix, 1 open suffix, and I'm like, I could remove this craft and just multi-mod, perfect weapon, I will never replace this. Then the little voice in the back of my head said, what if it's like a really good Veiled mod there? Like, what if it's like a really good Veiled mod, Tarke? You'd have such a good weapon. It was a shit fucking Veiled mod, dude. It was trash.
For those of you who don't know why this was even a choice for Tarke, when a mod is veiled on an item, it is a crafted mod. Yeah. Until you go and give it to Ashling, or not Ashling, Jun, and say, I would like to know what this is, so long as it's like still blurry text, it's a crafted mod. So you can go to your bench and remove crafted mods and just get rid of it instead of unveiling it.
Yeah, so I then tried saving it, and then like we're talking like 3 Veiled Orbs, 4 Exalts later, it was completely bricked, and I'm like, ah, shit. I've still got like 11 Exalts and like 8 Veiled Orbs in SSF, so I'm fine, but that was like, I'm glad I wasn't streaming that process. Veiled crafting's really good, and it is deterministic, which I like. Like, Veiled crafting feels like what Harvest always should have been, but I do worry a little bit that like Veiled crafting is just like the elitist Harvest crafting, because it requires all this like meta mod and initial investment. So it's kind of like you're still getting the same power level of gear, but it just feels like now only people with the bank can kind of get it. I don't know.
You don't have, it doesn't have to be just that. For I think a lot of the like normie players like myself, even just like when you're buying gear, making sure that you have like a spare affix slot somewhere. So you're playing Trade League and you're buying a ring and you're like, I'm going to make sure I have 2 open suffixes so that I can, get my tier 4 Ashling and slap something on there, get something cool hopefully, and then mastercraft whatever I'm missing. Like that's a pretty fun upgrade path and still fairly engaging and very doable and solid for, I think, most players without having to like go into like full meta modding and everything like that.
The thing is, it almost feels like a single unveil can make an item, right? Where like you get that minimum frenzy with frenzy and kill, and it's like, yeah, this has life on it, I'm gonna use it forever. But then simultaneously my big problem is the gap between like what you can accomplish as somebody with currency and who plays a lot versus like how much you're getting as like the average player. That like gap is so much bigger with this than I feel like it's ever been, even in like the harvest days. Maybe last league with like the new harvest, it was pretty large too, right? But then at least you were, I don't know, in some way you were directly rewarded for playing the game, as most people SSF their harvest, but now you can just like throw money at it and it'll just work.
Yeah.
Which,
I mean,
in that way, the determinism works, but the gap is just so large. You can make better items than you ever could in PoE ever.
the biggest example of that is probably just the fact that like augments and remove non-X add X are still extremely powerful and still in the game, but they're just so incredibly rare that they're essentially unavailable to anyone who doesn't have a horde of exalts.
True.
I really enjoyed. I was watching Octavian stream the other day, and a guy in your chat said, "I just found Org Cret," and your reaction was, "I don't believe you."
Why would I?
It was such a genuine, like, stop lying. Like, why would you say such a horrible thing? What's the best harvest craft you've all gone? Like, we played this game last time.
I'm going to boot up PoE so I can have a look. I don't even know. I probably still got my best thing stored.
I've got a couple of Reforge Keep Prefix or Reforge Keep Suffix. That's probably the best.
Yeah, I haven't gotten... I had that last time, and that was... I haven't gotten anything better than a single keep prefix since then.
I've seen like 5 or 6 of them, but like I said earlier, I've been doing harvest in every map for a couple days. So,
you know what my best actually was that I've used all of them was the gamble divination cards to receive between 0 and half, like double. Because I took the 2x card, whatever that's called. I took one of those, doubled it, then nothing, and then doubled it again, and then I took it all the way to 10 from 1 with like 5, I think, of those gambles. That was great. That was so good.
Most valuable indeed.
Pretty much. But yeah, I've got like I got a bunch of the reroll influences. Those have been pretty common. And I think I had like 1 keep prefixes or something. Yep.
My best has been reroll influence, which is it's nice, but it's kind of like
I think
I've
that's
had
like
a lot of those. On League Start, I had like my entire Horde crafting filled up with those, like 10, and that was in the first week, and I haven't replaced them. I used like 3 today on a weapon to get my Elder weapon. That was nice to actually hit it. That was great. But they're just sitting there, like I'm just not using them. I got a lot of those, but then nothing ever outside of like the keep prefix, reroll, whatever.
How many harvest bosses have you guys seen? I got 1.
0.
0.
4, but it's always the reroll it random.
Wait, but it's important to mention, are you guys using like harvest passives?
Yeah.
But for some of them, not for all of them.
Because I haven't been using the harvest passives at all.
Same, yeah.
Ritual to value.
I ditched it.
Like all my bosses have not spawned in the harvest region, even though I have the harvest region with the harvest passives.
Classic.
You know what is a silver lining here? Remember how back in Harvest discussions we were talking about how you can never store some of the cool crafts like change resistances and stuff like that because you've got too many augments and everything?
Yeah.
Now that I'm not storing any augments or anything like that, I've got a couple of resist changes. I've got like
Yeah.
one of each resist change stored away. So whenever I need to change a resist, I got them stored in the bench.
Same.
I can actually store those suckers now.
I mean,
And if you beat Oshabi, you can store 5 more.
Oh,
Wait,
wait,
so-
who is that?
Ashabi doesn't
Yeah.
exist.
across all of that, does anybody have like a single fragment? Well, I guess Nugi has fragments
Oh, I
for
have.
Shabi.
Wait, is it one?
It's not fragments. You just I got her from I got the boss key from the one boss that I killed, and it's
Oh,
just,
it's just one key.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not fragments.
Okay.
She's a goddamn pushover. There's no mods in the zone. It's like I-82 or I-81 or something. I don't remember. She just dies and doesn't do anything.
I always thought Ashabi was a shit fucking fight. I really apologize.
Hey.
Whoever made the fight, I'm sure you're
Mm.
great, but Wi-Fi progress, like, no, it was
What?
I don't know.
I think it was a good fight.
really
It's
what was
not-
good about it. And it's just
I think it's balanced around showing up in maps, and so
Right, yeah.
you know, like baseline without any map mods, it's not particularly dangerous. With the
Mm.
wrong map mods, it's goddamn deadly. So there's this huge layers of variance. I feel like they could probably buff baseline Oshabi now since she doesn't show up in maps anymore.
Shabi makes sense, and I like that. For instance, I really like the Katarina fight because eventually, once I've done it enough, and once I've read up on what it actually does, right? Oh, when she's teleporting around, you're not supposed to avoid it. You're supposed to bait out the attack. Otherwise, she's gonna get more and more AOE. Like shit like that, or like stepping over the skeletons. Shit like that, you're never gonna figure out for like an eternity. Once you know
I
it,
love those
it makes a lot
skelly
of
rips
sense.
in hardcore. Who was it? Was it Ziz or someone where you were
Ziz,
trying to
yeah.
analyze it, right? You're like, you watch it like 50 times. You're like, oh, skellies.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, did they change the look of this or that? Oh no, there's like a tiny glowy guy. Because the clip started like the clip started before, like you
Yeah.
could see the actual face. But yeah, with Oshabi, I mean, it makes sense. Like the first time I did it blind, and I just went into the fight. And funny enough, that was also in the gauntlet. So that added a little bit of extra spice. I just like ran circles around there. I'm like, oh, she does this attack, this attack, this attack, and this attack. And then I could just do the fight, and it was fine, you know? I really like that a lot because fuck figuring out Maven on its own, right? When you're getting detonated by successfully finishing the mechanic, you get blown the fuck up like Katarina. I mean, I guess Shaper's really good at that too, to be
Shaper was
honest.
the
Like being
best,
pretty
dude.
self-explanatory. Yeah.
Trailmaster.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I think Trialmaster is an incredibly intuitive fight, except for when he freezes the screen and you don't know he does that. I freaked the hell out. I'm like, what have I done? And then it's like, oh, it's fine.
I've watched enough JoJo for that.
Uh-huh.
It's okay.
Not to wrap up because I'm getting really tired or anything, but like to summarize, is there any topics you feel like we've skimmed over, or is there anything left you want to say, or?
I think just I had a craft. I don't know. This league has made me appreciate meta. Like I think with the ashling and meta crafting in general, and I think the harvest rerolls actually is there is a crafting system there that's really interesting. With like you keep something, you add something on there. And the fact that we have specific reforges there is a cost associated with it. It's not just an augment chaos, it's a reforge chaos with a 2 exalt cost. And then it also scours off some stuff and like randomizes. It gives enough that system, if worked on, I mean it gives enough control, but also maintains, the randomness and like the gamble of it, to where we don't end up with these perfect items. But if it was actually in the hands of more players, it would be a really interesting system. Like for instance, I thought, what if you took all that crafting stuff out of Harvest? I don't know what, just all the good crafting, and finally just made a proper crafting vendor. just a better, like the crafting bench itself, and add a master to that, and just the good things that harvested, and then add some cost to it through the say exalts or chaos or whatever, or maybe you had to like find an item plus a chaos could give you a chaos reforge, right? And you can like kind of like feed that into the system, and you could and then just give us more exalts and use exalts to like reforge with it, and just give the actual like crafting items an existence again, rather than only for like, you know, trading and for some meta mod,
I dig
like
that.
in the average player.
If
Fire
Yeah.
infused exalts and so on like that. Being able to do something like that would be really cool.
But not the infused exalts, no, because that's like too powerful, right? That's like the augment skin. But you know, but having
I
this
don't think
like,
so.
you know, you force something at a cost of something else.
No, I like that. Although if they do that, can we please take meta mods out of Prophecy? That's my like one grind I hate doing every league. Because it's just so RNG. Sometimes you get it right
Random,
away.
yeah.
And then, like I
Run
only
Tyrion Ven and
finished.
you'll have 500 silver coins by the end of the day.
Yeah, like I only finished my Pale Council stuff at like the start of this week, and it's like, ugh. And so many systems
Yeah.
are gated behind it. It's just, ugh.
No, it's true. It's kind of silly. It's just because I think that there's an underappreciated crafting system that exists in PoE that's not being leveraged properly. Right? It's it's obscured to the masses, and it's like it's this weird thing where you have to go through all these other systems with like the prophecies and then harvest and all that, and then there's the bench itself. It's like, why not just make crafting an actual core system that is built from the ground up rather than this like bits and pieces here and there? And then you can have stuff like ashling with very unique, specific like traits, or you can have like synthesized beasts or fractures, or these like more unique features of crafting be in unique encounters, and have like just the general crafting be more of an enveloped system that is more engaging and inviting to the player.
Yeah.
Man, you know what? The funny part is, all of this that you just said was already spoken in 2012 by the Diablo 3 developers that implemented the 3 unveil system already. Same for lab enchants, 3 lab enchants, 3 unveils. They had it right all along. I've been saying for years, if the games could combine, it would benefit. Everybody kept saying, no, Diablo 3 is garbage. It doesn't have any good elements. Well, turns out, GGG agrees. People thought, oh, Diablo 3 system, so simple, so stupid. Well, Nugi just explained to you what the D3 devs knew all along. Shit.
Is that our
It's
closing
tragic.
thought? Does anyone have anything else to say, or is that what we're finishing on? Praising
Perfect.
D3.
I'm going to cry now.
Well, in that case, I'd like to thank everyone for coming on, and we'll see you all again in 2 weeks' time to talk more about how amazing Diablo and Blizzard are. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Raiz,
I love this.
just quickly before we do actually finish, because I haven't heard your thoughts on this. The fuck do you think about this paying $35 to clone your classic character to fucking stay for classic in BC?
I'm not playing TBC. Out of
Bruh.
principle.
Same.
Pure scum. I can't. It's unthinkable to me that they did that. They're like, basically, so you're gonna have to pay to keep your classic character,
Yeah.
to anybody that doesn't know, instead of like progressing it into TBC. So they're like hosting the life of your classic character hostage.
Yeah.
It's like insane. It's most insane thing that I ever thought that they could possibly come up with. I couldn't believe it.
So
I
for
don't know. I just
people
can't play
who are
TBC.
completely out of the loop, so Octavian. So they did the classic WoW, right? They've grinded everything out. They're level 60. They've got all their cool gear, and they're introducing TBC, which is the
And, like,
expansion classic.
And again, to highlight, it's like a sort of game where your D character, people get married based off of their in-game characters. Like, it is everything about your
Yes.
character progression. You are very much tied and like attack. Like
you'll have
you're
the same
that
character you've played for like 8 years running. My friend from earlier, he's been playing the same chamois for fucking anyway. So you get a choice when the new expansion comes out. You can either keep your character on the classic servers and it doesn't go into the future expansion, or it goes to the future expansion and it's removed from all the classic servers, or option 3, for the low price of $35, you get to clone your character, so you get to keep the original experience and then take it over to the new expansion. And that's per fucking character. So let's say you've got like 3 or 4 characters, right?
Which a lot of people do.
Yeah.
People like were leveling like every class, 7 classes for TBC and all this stuff, and they're like, yeah, per character, per server, every time, bitch.
A large part of the reason I didn't pick up WoW and play it at any point in my life is because I just really dislike the subscription model that it's been run on. Personally, I find that to be a little much, and like this is a couple steps beyond that.
Yeah, you're paying a subscription and you have to pay for the food, and there's
people are already paying.
And
Right.
they introduced this really cool thing. You like this as well, Octavian. So this new expansion they're adding, ignoring the cloning characters, it's free. Like if you already have a subscription, you don't need to pay anything for it. But you can get the deluxe edition of the game that is in quotation marks free. And for the low price
from 20 years ago.
Yeah, for the low price of $69.99, you get a mount.
I think we have finally discovered that Blizzard does in fact like money.
Fucking. I mean, it's good, because think about it. If it wasn't for all of this money, how else are they going to be able to fire half of their fucking staff this summer? Fucking every year, Blizzard earning calls. We've made more money than we've ever made. We fired 800 fucking community managers.
Well, apparently this year they made like a substantially less amount that they were expecting. So like that's where the TBC decision came from.
I mean, is that because the system that we have in place for the development of our video games on a AAA scale continually calls for higher and higher and higher and higher profits every single quarter? Instead of, just being okay with making a lot of money, they have to make every money?
Yeah, pretty much.
I think that's maybe more the reason.
Also, one thing that I love, though, just briefly. So in chat, we're seeing people, to be fair, Tarke, this isn't Blizzard. This is Activision. When the fuck was the last time did someone say, it's not Tencent, it's GGG? Like, fuck off. You can't play this game, man. And it's Blizzard. Like, people feel like the Activision thing was recent. Like, they've been with Activision for a long time now. It's been a
like
long
10 years,
time.
bro.
Yeah, man.
It's been long.
All right, okay. We can go. Is anyone streaming after this? We'll throw a host over or something. If not, I'm so tired. Yeah, I'm gonna have
I'll be in the just chatting section crying.
I'm calling my mother because it's Mother's Day, and you probably should too at some point. People watching, is it Mother's Day today?
It was yesterday for me.
This
it's
always
Mother's Day today for me.
Ours isn't for like a couple more months, and always freaks me out. It sucks that people
I'm
get
in
shit at
America.
different times of year. Yeah.
I'm surprised that's not an international holiday.
Yeah.
You guys do have mothers, right?
Yeah, we have mothers. We just do it on a different day. Mm-hmm.
Their mothers are later though.
Who do we host?
It's the 26th of May for me. So
let's host.
Happy birthday to your mother. Yep.
Call her anyway. Angry emoji.
We'll host Carve.
Yeah, I mean that's probably a good idea.
And if everyone wants to go and talk to Carve about Atlas reworks, considering he's just put out a massive guide, I think he'd really appreciate that.
Cool.
But yeah, thank you everyone for hanging out, and we will see you all in a couple of weeks.
Bye.
I did just Google
Bye.
if it's Mother's Day on the 26th because I treat my mother like it's her goddamn day every day, all the time. I don't need no Mother's Day, goddammit.